Gentlemen, welcome to the Town of Wareham BoS Sewer Commission meeting, November 8th. Before we start, I am requesting all cell phones and electronic devices be turned off or in a mute. Any member of the public also has a right to make an audio or video recording of an open session. The public who wishes to record a meeting must first notify the chair and must comply with reasonable video equipment established by the chair, so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. Meeting is now in order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman, she's crossing the street, but at the moment, Mr. Schneider, Mrs. Begley, myself, and the chairman, Mr. Cruz, are present, as is the town administrator, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you very much. Announcements.
First, I'd like to mention that on Saturday night, the Lady Vikings participated in the playoffs for the first time, I guess, in Wareham's history. The first game was a thriller, and they beat up on Bourne pretty well, let's just put it that way. And we thought we were sailing to victory, but we kind of fell short on the last two games and lost. But I wanted to shout out on behalf of the board and the town of Wareham that we're very proud of these young ladies for an outstanding season. And at some point, Mr. Chairman, maybe later we can discuss maybe a proclamation or something, have the team come in and give them a little attaboy and thank you. But they're all winners in our book. The following announcements. St. Patrick's Parish Annual Holiday Fair will be on Saturday, November the 26th at the Parish Center on High Street from 9 to 2. Mrs. Morrison, if you would, I sent you back a note. As you know, Sally in a group down there in Onset, maybe the other selectmen might remember some of this. They do those backpacks for the kids, the comfort kids. Can you talk to that, Mrs. Begley? Do you? Oh, you're not. She sent the note. I asked her. She didn't send any where, when's, how's, where the collection is, or anything. So, somebody else? Oh.
Yep.
So,
Mr. Holmes, I think that was just kind of a heads up because I received an email as well. So I think that more information will be coming.
Okay. I did send her a note, and hopefully that it should get back to us. The Friends of the Wareham Elderly will be having their Christmas party on December the 14th at noon at the Multi-Service Center. Invite all Wareham 60 and above seniors, $10 for the tickets. And the great Daddy-O will be entertaining that day. Also, a reminder that the Elvis show is coming very soon, November 19th at 8 p.m. at the Elks. $10 are the tickets. Doors open at 7:30. Come on down and see Elvis. On Friday, big day coming up. This is really, boy, if you have any energy in your body at all, please show up. This group has done a tremendous job. Mr. White, Mrs. Boyer, Mr. Wagner, and the rest of the Veterans Council in pulling together a Veterans Day Parade in Wareham. It's going to assemble at 10 over in the Narrows area, and it'll step off at 10:30. There'll be a ceremony out here, a brief ceremony, I'm told. And following, there'll be a light potluck, so don't forget to bring something good. I believe, I heard from Mr. White. He's not here, is he? Oh, there he is. I believe I heard that some of your selectmen may actually be serving food. I heard that rumor. Not sure if it's true or not. And, Bob, I was thinking today as I looked at the weather, we're walking in the rain, right? If it rains? Oh, you will address it? Okay. Because I did find my golf umbrella I could share with someone. So please come on out on Friday. This team has done a tremendous job putting all this together. A reminder that the Boys and Girls Steak and Burger Dinner is going to be on Monday, November 14th at the Century House in Acushnet. On November 19th from 9 to 2, the First Congregational Church is having their Harvest and Holly Fair. That's at 11 Gibbs Avenue in the Roland Thatcher Fellowship House. We're still collecting candy for the troops. So those of you who didn't listen to me last week and hid your candy in the closet, please take it out of the closet, over to Wareham Crossing, and drop it off. I'm sure they won't mind if you bought a bag of Christmas candy to throw in this mix. And they will be there until November 14th. So you still have a few days to drop off your candy. Until November 13th, Mr. Cruz spoke to this last week. The Community Baptist Church is having their 4th annual backpack ministry. Toiletry items, shampoo, hair conditioner, shaving cream, toothpaste, etc. Please drop those donations off at the church. That's on Front Street in Marion. On the 8th, which is today, did anyone go to the history and art discussion at the library? Anybody at all? You did? Oh. There you go. So somebody was there. Great. See, so the announcements work. Now, the Narrows is teaming up with the Tara Dean Studio to help fight hunger. It looks like event dates are in here. A fact, 17.2 million households, 14.5% of households, 1 in 7, are food insecure, the highest number ever recorded in the United States. And so bring in any perishable, non-perishable food item from now until November 23rd and receive a complimentary gift from either the Narrows Restaurant or the Tara Dean Studio. 100% of all items collected will be donated to Damien's Food Pantry here in Wareham to help the neediest. So please drop off your canned goods and things at the Narrows Restaurant on 1 Narrows Road in Wareham, or Tara Dean Studio, which is on 6 Union Ave in Onset, Mass. I did want to just take a moment and talk about announcements. The next 8 weeks for many, for some, will be very pleasant and very fruitful. But for many in our community, they're probably going to be the worst years of people's lives. Loss of income, loss of jobs. People are hurting. And so, on behalf of the board, if your organization is planning a benefit or some type of gathering, please make sure that we get the information, drop it off at the office, call any of the members of the Board of Selectmen, send us an email. We really want to try to advertise your events so that you can get the most activity and the most contributions for your funds. On December the 17th, I don't have all the details yet, but please mark the calendars. I know it's the week before Christmas, and we're still working on details for the event. But on December the 17th, we'll be hosting a fundraiser for the families that were burnt out on Main Street a couple weeks ago there. Again, details are sketchy. I'll have more next week. We're getting permission from the families to do the advertising. So any businesses out there, you know that you're going to get hit up pretty soon. Please be generous. I was thinking that because it's the week before Christmas, we may be able to save Christmas for the kids. And someone reminded me last night that, although that's important, many of these people, they have nothing. They lost everything in that fire. And they're trying to, just enough to get a security deposit to get an apartment. Which leads me to the final announcement, and that is if anyone in the community has a winter home here, these people, they have a family that's broken up, I did write the kids, 15, 17, 4 years old. The family is trying to stay with friends in an apartment. They are kind of broken up right now. So if somebody has an apartment here that they typically rent in the summer and it's still open, please contact any member of the board or Mr. Andrews or anyone if you feel so compelled to offer that up to these people and get their family back together by Christmas. That's all I have. Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Did you make the recycling day announcement? Okay. I'll do that. The Wareham Recycling Center, located on Plymouth Road in East Wareham, will celebrate America Recycles Day on November 15th from noon to 3 p.m. Prizes will be handed out and a raffle will take place. For more information, call 508-291-6520.
Mr. Stein? Mrs. Bagley? Mr. Chairman? That covers the announcement. Citizens' participation.
Citizens' participation. We have 3. Mr. White.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your support of the Veterans Day parade and the other activities that are going to take place on Veterans Day. I think you've all done a yeoman's job so far, and I certainly do appreciate that. Just to reiterate what Steve said just a minute ago, and that was that the parade forms at 10 o'clock down in the Narrows end of Main Street. You'll either be on Merchants Way or in the Bessie Park area headed down toward the Zecco's Marina. Equipment and units that have a lot of mobile stuff with them would be on Bessie Park area. People and marchers with light vehicles would be in the Merchants Way area. We want to try and keep vehicles away from people. Anybody who is a citizens of this area is welcome to participate in this parade. It's generated to say thank you to the veterans, old and new, and we expect to have some old ones and some very new ones in the parade. We've also had great support on the potluck luncheon so far. So we're looking forward to having plenty of food. So I got to say, bring an appetite and eat hearty. Inclement weather policy. If we have inclement weather, we're going to announce that through the reverse 911 process. If you can't find out any other way, then you'll have to call the TV station or call me personally. But the parade will be canceled if it's really bad weather. The ceremony will continue as planned in the auditorium at Town Hall. And the luncheon will continue as planned in the multi-service center. We are anticipating, although this was an unexpected pleasure, the Town Hall will be open even if we don't go inside for the ceremony, in such a way so that the citizens and the veterans can view a number of memorial plaques that are being put up by several of the men of the Municipal Maintenance Department. They've been working, I hate to say around the clock, but many hours to put this thing together. It's been in process for a number of years, and this is the first opportunity we've had to get it finally assembled. And it is gorgeous. Anybody who's seen it is impressed beyond belief. The only other thing I can say is we hope that other people will be interested in working in the parade and marching in the parade. And the support of the community has been outstanding. I don't think I've ever lived in a place that has had as many people willing to share as Wareham. So I'm encouraged, and I hope that the citizens will come out to participate and say thank you to the veterans. And thank you for the opportunity to have this moment here.
Mr. White, did you get any calls from Otis?
Yes, I did.
All right. This after I talked to you, because I got a hold of the lady I know that works there, and she said she didn't even get a request, so she was working on it.
She
Did she
turns
talk
out to
to
be
you?
a mover and a shaker like you. Thank you.
I have a question.
I have a question too.
It's about, what do you have for the logistics of the food, Bob? Who's going to be in charge of that? Where do people bring it?
The food should be brought to the rear door of a multi-service center where the Meals on Wheels comes and goes, so that we can keep vehicles back in that area as opposed to out in front. I'm hoping that that door can be open at 9 o'clock in the morning so that we can begin to bring food in and get it taken care of properly.
Okay, thank you.
That was pretty much my question was, obviously I have to drop the food off before I go to Merchant's Way.
Yes, you do. We have a key person who's agreed to help form the parade, several of them. One will be Sharon Boyer, the other will be Dave Bagley, and the kingpin down there is going to be Guy Campina. He's a big, tall guy. It'd be hard to miss him, and we'll try to identify him with a flag or something else. In any case, thank you very much.
And for all the veterans that are going there, take a look at the plaques and make sure, check your name out, see if your name's on there. If it isn't, let someone know, and they'll have a name tag put up on the plaque for you. But it is beautiful. Mr. Gaines? No, there's one more after.
That just means Larry has a lot to say.
Yes. Good evening, Sandy Slavin. Just 4 quick things. I'll make it quick. In the fall 2010 town meeting, Article 48, we voted to form a board of sewer commissioners. It's been a year, and I haven't heard anything where that stands with the state. If people are going to become part of the sewer commissioners, they have to be ready to campaign and vote, and I was hoping it would be done for the spring ballot. But I'd like to know if there's any status on where that article is and getting it approved by the state.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes.
I did call, as I told you, I with the town clerk a couple of weeks ago. The article is passed, and there was a little confusion on my part, I think, as to the next step. But the plan is to have that on the ballot in April. We weren't going to have a special election for that.
So it has passed the state legislature and
My
stuff like that?
understanding from the town clerk, yes.
I was under the impression that there were some legal questions on the wording of the article and it hadn't been
Well,
submitted yet.
if you knew that, then what do you, with all
I
due
wanted to
respect,
know,
if you
well,
know that, then what do you
that was
ask
just
me
a
the
rumor.
question
It
for?
was a rumor I had heard. I wanted it validated by the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, I thought I just said I called the town clerk.
Right, and when we get information, it'll be verified by town clerk. So if you need any more information, go to the clerk's office, and they'll have the information, because it's the same place where we're going to get our information from, is from the town
Okay,
clerk.
thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2, while I was away, I had read an article that the town received $121,000 additional funds from the state, and that it would be up to the town administrator to disperse it as he sees, but he would be contacting the selectmen as to how that would be dispersed. I just wanted to remind people that on the fall 10 town meeting, Article 6, we voted to appropriate $75,000 for an upgrade for the multi-service center generator, because the generator we have will not operate the elevators, and I was wondering if that was being considered for the $121,000, since the town has already approved that expenditure and it hasn't happened yet.
Mr. Town Administrator? And a lot of these questions, I'm not going to cut you short, but a lot of these questions, Town Administrator has open house, excuse me, on Thursdays from 3 to 5. A lot of these questions that we have, we can bring to the Town Administrator. And a lot of the other questions, like the town clerk. And you've been in the town hall more than I have, and you know where to go for information. So thank you very much. And
I've got 2 more to go.
I know for the last 2 weeks it's been nice.
Nice
Thank
without
you.
me here? Yes, I'm glad to be back.
Well, you're the one that said that, not me. The Town Administrator?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Ms. Slavin, yes, and the idea behind this was, I believe you were at town meeting, you heard me say that House Bill 3737 was pending on the governor's desk, and what it did do was take a snapshot back in time to get us to the fiscal 2011 unrestricted governmental aid to the town, which is an additional $121,001. So I'll be looking for the board's advice and counsel as to how to move forward. Certainly, items like the generator for this building are of concern and would be, I'm sure, fully discussed and considered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Several weeks ago, I came and talked to the board about an issue with some signage and street painting for Narrows Road, and I was told that there was a chain of command to go through. I have checked every place on the town website, and I can't find anything that tells me that I should have gone to the clerk to ask the question about the article, that I should have gone to the town maintenance or police department before I came before the road commissioners regarding a sign. I was just wondering, where is that list of pecking order so I don't come before here again incorrectly?
Well, like I said, if you had went to the meeting on Thursdays from 3 to 5, I think Mr. Andrews could have put you in the right direction. Street and roads for anybody, it's the maintenance department. They're in charge of the highway for right now. So if you have any problem with your street and roads that you need to inform anybody, it's Mark Gifford. It's Mark Gifford. You go to him first. And just like you said.
I was sort of confused because the week I spoke about the Narrows, somebody had contacted someone on the Board of Selectmen, and they brought it up in public about the speed limit on Swiss Beach and Oak Street. So I thought that was the way to go, is to bring it to the Selectmen.
It all goes to the maintenance department, to Mark Gifford, and then between him and for the speed limits and everything else in town, has to go to the police department, and they have to check, because not only do we have rules and regulations, but we have the Mass Highway rules and regulations, and they know more on it than anybody else, and the police will check the vehicle traffic to decide what the speed limit would be.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, a few weeks ago, we appointed the road commissioners. I believe that this came up before that happened, and we made the announcement that night. I'm sure and they haven't met yet, but all road commissioner issues were to be directed to Chief Stanley, as we appointed him that night as the chairman of that committee.
Thank you.
So any question about signs, paint, speed limits, all go directly to Chief Stanley. You're welcome, Rick. That's where they go. We made that announcement here. And as soon as they meet, we'll have a formal statement on the website.
Okay. Final one. It's been a question I've asked before. Do we have the incremental cost of the movement of the 3 pump stations in Phase 2? I had heard a report of additional engineering and Giroso cost, but I haven't heard anything regarding the sewer commissioners for the incremental cost of 3 pump station movements. No, there was a discussion that Giroso said 131, but that was to construct the pump stations. If you answered...
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
You have to see Mr. Campino.
I just see his face in the back. He came in with a second document, I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago, and you went through it. You walked him through it, and he had I don't have the document in front of me, otherwise I would take it out.
I may have it. And I thought that we kind of went over that with Mr. Judici, and it came to
130, 300.
the total, because I asked about the total for moving. I'll look. See this bag? It's probably in there. I know it was between $300,000 and $400,000, but maybe Mr. Gifford. Right, and we announced it then, but we can get you a copy.
I remember that discussion. It was for engineering and construction.
No, there was a total.
Okay, did that include the $140,000 for CDM included?
I believe so.
Because I didn't hear the. Okay, I had asked, and no one ever got back to me as the total incremental cost for moving the 3 pump stations in Phase 2. And since I've been asking, I was hoping somebody would be.
Give her the invoice and she'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think later on in the meeting, because I remember the day that you asked that, Sandy, and it was one bill and then a second bill, and then we went through a lengthy document and walked through the costs for moving the 3 pump stations, and I had asked if this was the bottom line cost.
Mm-hmm.
Remember you sitting there.
But I didn't remember including the 144 CDM's additional over, because we went over the time frame, they had additional costs for monitoring that work.
I'll look through my documents and,
Okay. So right now, so over 300,000 for the 250 some odd households. Okay, that was my 4 things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Slavin.
Good evening. Through the chairman to selectmen and selectwomen. First, I'd like to address what you said, Steve, a little while ago about a family in town that about the fire. Friends of Wareham's Elderly exist to help people of that nature. We have not got but normally we get requests through the Council on Aging and Outreach. If you have close contact with these people, I would suggest you talk to the girl who runs outreach, and she makes a phone call. We can give what we can give, but there's necessity cards, and there's a donation of X amount of dollars for certain bills. So please, Yvonne Stone is the president, and she knows that, and she can call Yvonne and get approval. We could do it on the phone, but she needs the trustees' approval. But the necessity cards will be given to the Council on Aging Outreach Department probably within the next week, because we just changed them from food cards because we've got a food pantry now. So, and plus the fact, you might mention to them, there's a lot of food down there for them to go and get. So that can take a lot of, bill into a lot of bucks. But the main thing is, if you run into anyone, any of you, and I meet people on the street, the first thing I do, go to the outreach, have them call us, so we know whatever we're going to contribute, it's done properly. And we have not heard anything about, this particular thing. The other thing I just...
Thank you. I should have all the names and contact information in the morning, and I'll give you a call, Larry.
Please.
All right? Thank
Please.
you.
That's our pleasure. That's what we're here for. That's what our events are about, so that we have money to support these people. And talking about that, you said something about the Elks... Elvis Presley celebration, and that's really planned to be a nice night. And unfortunately, we have a requirement. We have to have at least 50 reservations in and paid for us to have the buffet. Whether we have the buffet or not, it will be 3 hours of work of music with Elvis Presley doing his show and doing DJs for people to enjoy themselves. They can get drinks at the bar. So the night will proceed. I won't know until Wednesday or Tuesday whether we have the full 50 in confirmed, because unfortunately I can't afford to go out and buy 50 dinners. So the dinner part might change, and if people are going to come in just for the dance, it'll be $7 per person, and then whatever drinks they need, they pay for at the bar. It could be a...
How close are you, do you know?
Beg your pardon?
How close are you today?
Not half. It was my fault in one respect. I got it out late. We normally need 3 weeks for that. And the papers have changed their way of doing things, and we've lost some of that. And I finally got it on the web pages and, our web page and also on TV. Everything we do is always, thank God, on the web page that we have. The town, Matt has done a great job for us, and also on the local TV stations. The only thing is I would like to mention one new event that we're having, which is the Dining for a Cause on December 7th. There again, everything we're doing will be on, the details will be there, and the coupons that they normally need to give us credit when they go to 99 House on that particular day, between 12:30 to 8 o'clock all day, we get 15%. And some people come with their Christmas parties. We had a couple of our citizens bring in 3-4 parties to support it last year. It was really great. So I'll be giving you that information, and thank you very much. But tomorrow morning, Steve?
December 7th is a Thursday night.
Say that again.
Your 99 dinner.
That's a Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
7th?
Yep, December 7th, yep.
This December 7th. It should
It's
be
a
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, Wednesday night. They normally only do the nonprofits Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays to build up the business. I won't be home tomorrow morning, but as soon as I get the list, I'll call but I need to talk to the outreach person. whoever that is. And there's been a few different ones, so we'll take care of it. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
Hope to see you at the dance.
Larry, when's the deadline for the buffet? Did that already pass?
Well, no. It says here the 12th, which is Friday. I'm going to extend it until at least Monday. They want at least 5 days ahead of time to buy the food.
So you need at
The
least
eligible.
25 more people.
Yeah, and all they have to do is call me. As long as I know they're coming, I'll order it. I mean, I've gambled with that a lot. And thank God most people have lived up to it. But thank you very much.
On your way back to your seat, grab those reporters from the newspapers. Maybe they can put a blurb in their story for you.
They don't talk to me. No, I'm teasing.
Thank you very much. Discussion with mass. Yeah, no. No, that was it. That was it for citizen participation. Discussion with Mass Dot.
Mr. Chairman, if I could introduce this matter through you to the board and the listening audience here tonight. Very proud to say working very closely with Mass DOT, Department of Transportation. We have here tonight Pam Hasner, Carrie LaValle, and Bill Tavares to talk with us about actually two things prompted this. One, we do have at Town Council a draft agreement that the board reviewed, at least took a look at back at the beginning part of the summer. And the second item, which has caused me great concern and alarm, and I have written to, as you know, you have copies, I've written to United States Senator John Kerry, United States Senator Scott Brown, and Congressman Barney Frank about this process of a super committee in Washington that is looking for ways to cut $1.2 trillion, and I didn't misspeak, it starts with the T. And how that happens over the next 10 years is critical to not only transportation projects in Massachusetts, but as I have indicated in my letters to the senators and congressmen, to community development block grant funding, or any other federal funding sources. Our schools receive Title I funding. So this is an opportunity to get updated on the project. We all were very saddened by a recent tragedy and death on Cranberry Highway. We left pre-town meeting and got home, and I got a call from the police chief that tragedy had occurred sometime in the early evening. So this is an opportunity to get updated. We've been working very closely. I know you, Mr. Chairman, and I've spent some time down at the planning agency, SERPID, lobbying for this project. I know Mr. Gifford has worked very hard to get attention to this project. In all said and done, this is a $12+ million project. The town deserves every opportunity to get Cranberry Highway brought up to full speed so that you can turn your car around, you can use sidewalks, utility poles will be removed and set back, and would find a way to make certain that that would be not only an important safety item, but also, Mr. Chairman, just real quick, a driver for our economic program along Cranberry Highway. So with that, I'd like to introduce Pam, if she could start the discussion.
Sure. Thank you very much for having us tonight, and I would like to extend our appreciation to Mark and Selectman Cruz for the ongoing cooperation and work that we've been doing together, and I know we'll continue. My name is Pam Hasner. I'm the Project Development Engineer in District 5. Carrie LaValle is the Project Manager out of the Boston office. Excuse me. And Bill Travers is the Projects Engineer in District 5. Excuse me for 1 minute. This is a very important project for on the local level, the regional level, and the state level, and we will do everything we possibly can to continue to advance this project. Just a very brief overview, you're probably familiar with it. The project begins just west of the Home Depot traffic lights and extends 2.7 miles to the Bill Dalton Bridge, the 6 and 28 bridge over the Cohasset Narrows. The project will consist of 4 consistent travel lanes, reconstructed traffic signals, a new traffic signal at Red Brook Road, shoulders that don't exist right now, a median to separate traffic to eliminate any head-on collisions, and sidewalks on both sides of the road. It's a very nice cross-section. It will also include drainage improvements and other amenities along the roadway. The project right now is at the 25% design stage. We have the project under review in Mass DOT. There are certain sections that are done. There's multiple sections that review a project. The most complicated part of this project is the right-of-way between the temporary easements and the permanent takings. There's over 300 parcels. There's strip takings the full length, and then temporary easements to match into the existing road, the existing abutting property. As I mentioned, the project is at the 25% design stage. As it stands now, there is dedicated funding through the Transportation Improvement Program to construct the project, advertise the project for construction in federal fiscal year 2014, which is about 2 years out. In October, we entered federal fiscal year 2012. So 2 years from now would be the beginning of 14, thereabouts. And that's when we plan to advertise the project for construction. I hope the super committee does not make any cuts. I've also seen on the state and federal level multiple studies that show that we don't invest nearly enough in transportation. I think there was an independent Transportation Finance Committee that came out with a report just on the state level. It was a number of years ago now, and I think it was like $17 billion we needed just to catch up and keep our roadways and bridges in good working condition. So there's a definite need to maintain our roadways. I don't know if anybody has anything to add, or if you have any specific questions, we'd be more than willing to answer them.
Anybody on the board? Mrs. Winslow?
I don't have any specific questions other than to say that it's very important that we get some things changed on Cranberry Highway. Last year and just a couple years ago, there was a horrific head-on collision which killed 2 young women and left their children orphans. So, I mean, 2 years is a long time, and how many more lives have to be lost before someone pays attention to this problem? I sincerely hope that you work to get that in lobby whoever you need to. It's a dangerous section of road. It's not well lit. And as people cross over from the mobile home park to go to the gas station to get a drink or a snack or a pack of cigarettes, especially in bad weather, it's very difficult for the drivers to see them as they come up upon them. And before you know it, we have another tragedy on our hands. So I'd appreciate anything you can do to speed up the process. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
I agree that with my fellow selectmen that this is an important project for the town, not only for safety reasons but also from the economic standpoint. I do have a question, though. I had heard at one point that when the discussions were taking place with a previous Board of Selectmen, that there was some discussion about the median island in the middle was supposed to have some sort of concrete barriers, but has that been removed? Am I to understand that? And now it's something...
Slightly raised island. It isn't a tall barrier. It's basically like the sidewalk. There'll be a curb or some type of edging, which will raise it slightly.
Use the microphone.
And some of
Oh, I'm sorry.
Some of the reasoning for that was that the emergency vehicles will still be able to mount the median, but cars won't be able to. So I know that part of the reason that design was changed from having a tall Jersey barrier type was comments that they had received from fire and police.
Okay. But the reason why I'm asking the question is I want to make sure that there is enough safety, whether it be through crosswalks or whatever, that are built into this project. I know that we have a lot of people across that road in all different points, and I don't know exactly how many crosswalks. How does that work exactly?
There will be crosswalks proposed at every existing signal, as well as the new signal that will be put in at Red Brook.
Mm-hmm.
we can't really have them, it wouldn't really be recommended to have a mid-block crossing in between those signals. They're not really that far spaced. So I understand your concern is that people will still run across this street, but it's very difficult to prevent them and also
Right.
make it possible for the emergency vehicles to cross the median, which is requested. So we're kind of trying to balance both issues. So we are trying to accommodate pedestrians as best as we can by having those sidewalks and crosswalks available to them and hope that they'll use the appropriate means across the road.
And those crosswalks would be the type of the on-demand, you push the button type? Okay. Yeah, I hope that you can, I also hope that you can do what you can to push this forward, because I think it is an important project.
Mrs. Bagley?
Thank you. I'm a little disappointed that we have to wait for it even to go out to bid until 2014. However, I'm assuming that, I understand that it's only 25% completed for the design stage. And am I correct in assuming that you've been working with the police department and Mr. Gifford from municipal maintenance?
Yes, we've been receiving comments all along, and in fact, this project was advanced at one point a little further along, but we ran into right-of-way issues at the last time. So I know that both the state and the consultant that we hired, VHB, has been working closely with the community to get the project to incorporate everyone's needs. We also will be holding a design public hearing once we receive all the comments internally, which will give another opportunity for the residents to comment on the project.
Thank you. You answered my next question.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Holmes?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've supported the project from the beginning, so I continue to do that. But my question is today as it was a year ago. At the end of this project, the road gets turned over to the town. The town takes ownership of that road. That's the part that we don't often talk about. And the concern there is really serious, that Mr. Gifford and this board, we need equipment. We don't own the equipment today to maintain a road like that size, especially in the winter. And of course, you know, we're covered for, I forget what the number of years was. We wouldn't have to touch it, right? You can't touch that for, what is it, 10 years after you lay it down?
As far as break-in access.
Doing anything to that road, it's about 5
5
years,
is what
right?
Right.
So, you know, we know that in terms of maintenance and operations for 5 years, that stuff is pretty well covered. But again, the concern is, because if we don't maintain it, we're back to a safety hazard again, especially in the wintertime. And last I heard that there was an opportunity maybe to transfer some equipment along with the road. Has that been discussed at your meetings? Is that still a possibility? I understand there were some discussions with other places as they turned these highways over that there was some equipment that moved with that ownership.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with an equipment transfer. I know when we do work with the communities for a discontinuance, every single discontinuance is unique.
Right.
And we'll work with you to try to accommodate your needs the best that we can. I sometimes will plow for, you know, a set amount of time after a discontinuance, things like that. But we'll work on the discontinuance and continue to advance the design. We don't want you to think that we won't advance the design without working out the details for
Right.
the discontinuance.
Yeah, because I mean, it could be just as simple as Mr. Gifford just, you know, having a contract with somebody to do that road. He only has 5 people, so it would take 2 people to run the big truck anyway.
Right.
But no, that is an important issue, is the maintenance of that road, because our town equipment is just not big enough to deal with that.
And the state has
Thank
limited,
you very much.
the state has limited equipment to plow as well. Most of our plowing is done by hired contractors.
Right.
So I'm sure they'll still be looking to plow the
Oh, I'm
roads,
sure they
no matter
will
who
too,
owns
yeah.
them.
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, just one last point. I want to thank Pam and the entire team for assisting the town, because this has been one of those projects of the utmost importance. It started, it stops, it starts, it pauses, it starts. I'd like to make sure that we can try to shepherd this one home, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I want to mention that we have formed, and for some time now, the town planner, John Charbonneau, Miles Burke, Police Chief Richard Stanley, have been working on signage along the way to help the right-of-way, if you will, because we certainly know that that's of importance, and to get a lot of that signage redesigned if it has to be moved to assist businesses in doing that. As you know, we can't directly help with the right-of-way, even though I offered help, and I was told we could not help, but the offer still stands if you need space or other types of assistance. The town is ready, willing, and able to help you. So, and I personally want to thank you, Pam. Last year, if you might recall, Mr. Chairman, last point, Ms. Hasner and her team presented at Wareham Works 2011, this past spring, and had a booth at that fair, and a number of individuals that have businesses or interest and investments along Cranberry Highway attended, asked questions, and I think that's part of the process in making sure that people are informed throughout the planning as we get closer to 50% designed, and then 75%, and then 100%. So that's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate all the work you've been doing, because I know we're in line with another big job, so we're hoping we can steer it our way instead of going to New Bedford. But, you know, if we all show interest in it, then maybe we can get better response. And I appreciate it very much.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one other question that maybe I missed in the presentation that you gave us a few months back, but I'm just thinking about it, and I'm thinking about the number. I'm thinking about Walmart exiting that area, and I'm thinking about the potential development of a rail station up in that area, and I'm just curious, at what capacity is this road being designed? How many trips per day is it being designed for?
I can look it up for you, but we do a projected volume. We don't do it based on the existing volume. We usually project out 10 years. I can look to see what it is right now. If you think traffic counts are necessary to be redone, that's something we can discuss.
Okay.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I think it's around 25,000 ADT, average daily traffic right now, and we do project out, actually for the federal aid projects, 20 years out, for the pavement design, for the traffic volumes, for the full design.
Right.
So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Winslow?
I just had one more comment in terms of the placements of the crosswalks. You could put a Jersey barrier up. That's not going to stop people from crossing the road. To me, and you can talk to the police department, it's a lighting issue. If you're driving that road on a dark, moonless night in a heavy rainstorm, it's very difficult to see in that area. Both of the fatalities occurred in the same area. The head-on collision was a fluke in broad daylight on a sunny day, but the pedestrian fatalities seem to occur in a general area, and I know I've noticed as I drive it, especially in poor weather, that it's really, if somebody walks out in front of you, it's very difficult to see. So hopefully you can take a look at that and incorporate. You're not going to put a crosswalk there. That wouldn't make sense. And people traveling at 40, 50 miles an hour aren't necessarily going to be able to just slam on their brakes and stop. But I think if the lighting was improved in that area, then it may cut down a little bit on that. The driver would at least have the opportunity to see ahead that there was someone in the roadway. So
we can look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gifford.
Yeah, I just have one question for folks from DOT. As a town of Wareham, do we have to have some sort of solid commitment that we want to go forward with this project? You know, in reference to taking the continuance? The continuance, I mean, do you need that in advance? I mean, that seems to be a snag here every time we talk about this project.
As I mentioned, we are advancing the design independent of negotiations for the discontinuance. We'd like to work with you to, hopefully before the project is advertised, to come to an agreement on that, but that is not holding up any design on this project.
Anything else, Mr. Gifford?
Well, because I feel that's important to know that we're going to be moving forward. We don't want to get to 50%, 75% design, and all of a sudden, we're not interested.
Right, that's why I was glad that most of the board members right now showed positive feedback, so just to let them know that we're all for it, so when they go back to the office, you can let them know we're just about on board and ready to go. Thank you. And anybody else on the board?
Just one other thing, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Gifford, you're very much in favor of this project, correct? And that's been consistent, exactly, right from the start. So to clarify, we haven't, hopefully it won't take that long, but this project won't be advertised till your fiscal year, 2014.
Federal fiscal year.
Federal fiscal year. So that's when it will be advertised for construction. So when you get to 50% design, I assume you'll be coming back before this board, and it could be discussed again, or 75%. What is the plan?
Plans are actually submitted to the town at every time we have a submission for the opportunity for you guys to comment on the project at that time. If you would feel it necessary after the hearing to have another chance for us to come in front of the town select board, I don't think that would be an issue at all.
But it's not, none of this is being held up whatsoever without having a definitive motion from this board, correct?
No, we're moving ahead with the design. We have the project under review. We hope to finalize all the review comments and have a 25% design public hearing, most likely in the spring to summer of next year, which is pretty much right on track for a project would be advertised 2 years out. So, and one of the reasons, or the main reason, that the project is not scheduled prior to 2014 is because the Transportation Improvement Program is very limited. The funds are constrained, and there are other projects that are in the queue that are very important to their communities before this project. So, if
Okay,
something
thank you very
happens,
much. Yeah. This is not a public hearing, so we're not taking any comments from the audience. And right now, when the project does get going, they will have a public meeting for the public to...
Pam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Enjoy your holidays.
Just one quick question, if I may. How will the public hearing be advertised?
It's we have a standard process, so I would contact most likely Mark, because he's been my contact within the community. We would advertise it in 2 papers. I would ask him which local papers it should be shown in. You'd have it advertised 2 weeks ahead of time and 1 week ahead of time, and I would negotiate with him the best location. I'm assuming it would probably be one of this building or town hall where we would hold the hearing.
Okay.
But there would be plenty of advertisement for it.
Thank you.
And also, I can give you the contact information so you can post it on your website.
Steve can announce it too. He likes to do that.
there we go.
Give me the announcement.
Just whip him off an email.
Again, thank you very much for coming.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
For the
much.
update.
Mr. Chairman, on Westfield, I did get a hold of Mr. Heaney last week. We are scheduled for 6 p.m. on Tuesday. And I saw the email he got out to his board. The meeting's been posted. Does anybody have any other updates on Westfield this week?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, in your packet, you have 2 email blasts that went out to prospective bidders that went out on November 4th. You have an update from Susan Green on the RFP reminder on November 4th, and also a reminder on November 8th.
Thank you. Denise, if you wouldn't mind to reach up and do the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And on the last email blast, the reminder notice was very large, so that we're trying to get folks to understand that the deadline is coming up on November 10th at 3 p.m. And once again, the memorandum was done this afternoon, and I want to thank Susan for her work in getting that done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else on Westfield? Moving right along, Health Department report on 118 Sandwich Road.
Mr. Chairman,
Can you speak to that, Mr.
through you to the board and listening audience, this has been an ongoing project for quite some time, and it is a very dire circumstance, and I asked Mr. Ethier, as he has in the past, to provide the board with an update. It is in the packet. He has sought a number of different methods by which to seek relief on this, and once again, his report, this goes back to a while back, if you will. And so, with respect to the neighborhood and the sanitary code, Mr. Ethier has provided us with an update. We've tried a number of different ways, and I believe I'm going to ask him to come back next week, Mr. Chairman, provide the board with a further update and what actions perhaps the board and/or he can take to rectify the situation at this property, Mr. Chairman.
It sounds like he's at a point where he's ready to demolish and clean on our own.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything that might be left standing and clean it up.
Is
that where he's at?
That's
now?
where he's at.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chairman, I hesitate to allow this situation to go another week. I mean, this is a very sad situation, but that pile that's sitting out there is an absolute safety hazard, and it's been there for quite some time. And I would like to make a motion based on the letter from Mr. Ethier that we, the Board of Selectmen, call a hearing under Chapter 139, Section 1, which gives us the right, based on a nuisance to the neighborhood, to clean up the debris on behalf of the town. And I do believe that that notice would have to be sent in accordance with the notification standards set forth in the law.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
For discussion?
For discussion, Mrs. Bagley.
Carl made a motion, and Walt second.
Got it. Go ahead.
This property has been on the agenda of the Board of Health almost monthly. And apparently, the gentleman that was in this home had been on their radar for some time, given the circumstances that he chose to live. The fire occurred in January of last year, and it's been discussed as being, I'm with you on this, it's been discussed as being an attractive nuisance. There are burnt-out vehicles on the property.
What did you just say?
An attractive nuisance, yeah.
Nuisance.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Because if a child went in there and fell into that debris, you would never know. One would never know. The owner of the property certainly has no financial means whatsoever to clean this property up, and his family has attempted to do so over a period of time, but now that pretty much I think it's overwhelming for them. I would agree with Selectman Winslow to have something done on this property as soon as possible. The person, if you look at the property that's adjacent to it, it's pristine. And that neighbor has been more than patient with the town and with the owner of that property.
Mr. Chair, just through you to Mrs. Begley, this property, I think the town has really tried hard to work with the owner. It's a tragic circumstance. However, rain, snow, all those things, as you know, working in the healthcare field, contribute to the growth of mold. God knows what kind of rats and mice are living in there. It's a real problem, and I feel that at this point, there's a sense of urgency. We've got to get something done about this before the weather sets in. It's snowed over, and now we're looking at spring.
I think Mrs. Winslow, if I heard correctly, and she is on my good side, Mrs. Begley was agreeing with you.
I believe so. I was just agreeing with her. I wanted it to be mutual. Don't you feel the love?
Yes, Mr. Schneider. Mr. Schneider, anything?
Agreement for agreement.
I actually fully agree with both of my fellow selectmen who have spoken on this issue thus far, but I do have a question that concerns me a little bit. This issue was brought before the housing court, I'm assuming, under the state sanitary code. for state sanitary code violations, and the order the order to correct was postponed. What is the status of the actual court case? Because I think we're going to need to know that moving forward, because this board can take whatever action it deems appropriate. However, at the end of the day, it's going to be the housing court that's going to make the determination
Well, no.
to move forward.
Mr. Begley?
Chairman Cruz, thank you. I think waiting a week in order to have Mr. Ethier here, because he has been working with the attorney for this homeowner. He had, I think, expressed himself to the board that he was going to housing court, but I think it would be beneficial to this board to know exactly where he stands on that, so that we don't have any missteps, so that we have to kind of undo whatever we've done. So I would respectfully ask this board to put this on the agenda for next week, so that we can hear from Mr. Ethier and see exactly where he stands with the attorney and possibly housing court. Would 1 week really make a difference?
Well, Mr. Chair, through you, my only concern at this point is that with the holidays approaching, the soonest today we'd be able to hold a hearing would be the first meeting in December. And my concern is obviously that by the time we hold that hearing, and I know that he would have some type of appeal to that hearing, by the time we get through this whole thing, there's going to be a foot of snow, which there may well be anyways. It's hard to tell, but if we put off a week, I really want to make sure that town council has looked at this and we are ready to do this. I mean, this property, this goes back to 1998, when the town first became involved because of the issues at the property. We've been to court on a number of times. It just seems to me that, at some point we need to get our ducks in a row, and we need to be ready to make the difficult decision that I understand nobody on this board really wants to do. I don't want to do it, but
excuse me, I don't want to cut anything short, but we know there's a dire need for something to be done on it. Now, the motion was, since I stepped out, Mr. Clerk, the
Right.
motion was.
The motion was to order cleanup and demolition.
Yes,
well,
turn
no,
over
the
to
motion was to hold the
Right,
hearing.
because we have to
the
turn
whole
over,
hearing, Right.
right, we have to turn it over to the lawyer. The note reads that we have to turn it over to them and they'll work on it. So we should have a motion that we accept it and we're going to go along with it. Because if we have to have Mr. Ethier back, he can come back next week. From now until next week, he can have Mr. Talaman or whoever do the paperwork, because it has to be done. So just to be putting it off is a fruitless attempt.
There is on the back of this, Mr. Chair, if you would indulge me here, some of the communications we received from town council, which explained to us, I do think we do have to find out where the housing court stands. However, that postponement was granted because the resident was still living in the home at the time and had a health condition that made it difficult for them to perform the necessary actions under the court order. However, the property is now vacant, burnt out, and a public nuisance. So
So your motion is to move forward?
Well, I'd be willing to withdraw my motion and make a new motion that Mr. Ethier.
Well, Mr. Cruz, would you take your second back?
Yeah, I take my second back on that.
Okay.
On this one, why don't we make a motion that turn it over to the lawyers and let them handle it?
Well, because it's up to us to handle it.
Well, it's up to us to give them the permission to go forward.
Well, no, the only thing the lawyers can do is look over the situation and make sure that we're in a place where we can go forward. We're the ones that have to order the hearing and hold the hearing.
Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if we schedule a hearing, have Ms. Ethier come in the interim period, and by that time we should also be able to find out what the status is with the housing court, or whichever court jurisdiction. Would that, so if you were to make a motion for the hearing,
Yeah. Well, I would just want to get the hearing date set sooner rather than later. We can always cancel a hearing. Okay, so I'm going to restate my motion that this board order a hearing under Chapter 139, Section 1, which gives us the right, based on a nuisance to the neighborhood, the right to clean up the debris at the location of 118 Sandwich Road.
second.
Motion made by Mrs. Winslow, second by Mr. Snyder. Any more questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, may I make a
Yes.
comment? I didn't want to make a comment under the discussion, but this is the kind of thing that drives me nuts. We sit here, 15, 20 minutes goes by, there's an issue on this agenda, somebody put this on this agenda, and there's nobody sitting here to give us the facts about this agenda item. Now, if Mr. Ethier is the person who should have done that, then, and he's ill, then somebody in his office should have been here. But this goes on all the time. This stuff gets on these agendas. There's nobody sitting here to explain it. And we spend 15 minutes, and we're going to come back next week and do exactly the same thing again. Except now we'll have somebody to give us the information. So if these people don't show up or send a representative from the town to tell us what this stuff is, we shouldn't be going through this. It's just ends up being a waste of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, well
Thank you.
taken. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I do need to leave the meeting to pick up a relative at the airport who was flying in unexpectedly this evening. They weren't scheduled to come in tonight. However, the item of transportation was of great interest to me. Would you mind taking that out of order so that I don't miss that piece?
I'm looking at the board for approval or disapproval.
I mean, the whole agenda is of concern to me, but I was particularly interested in that because I'm looking forward to the update.
So then we move to town business transportation.
Please, thank you. Second.
How's that? All right.
Sounds good to me. I think the consensus of
It's
the
on
board.
the agenda.
Right. It's on the agenda, and the consensus was to move up, so we're moving it.
We don't need to vote. The previous item was not voted on.
Excuse me, it's not a public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 5-0.
500 was the vote.
Was the vote. And then Steve made a comment after. If that's what you were talking about. Right, if you were talking about the health, Board of Health. Okay, discussion of transportation, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Chairman, I know we talked about this last meeting and wanted to report back that committee discussion, or I should say a group discussion on this last Thursday provided a draft motion, which you should have in front of you, that pertains to having a group of graduate students at nearby university or college conduct a study with respect to the financial analysis of busing and transportation needs, also an evaluation of privatizing the busing and transportation needs of the town, and making recommendations in that study, which would be due no later than March 1st, 2011, if that's possible. It's a very interesting time at college and university at this juncture because we are pretty much past midway through a semester. And to get graduate students lined up, Mr. Chairman, potential college students working with graduate students, they would have to get this project through the respective departments, probably on it before the early part of December. Finals will be coming up after that, and then there's spring break. There's mid-intermission, if you will, of the semester in order to get to the spring semester. And lastly, this group would present a presentation of the comprehensive study at a public hearing that would include the Wareham Board of Selectmen, the Wareham School Committee, the Wareham Finance Committee, and the Wareham Capital Planning Committee. And so I guess as ascribed to this group that met I wanted to make sure that everybody had a copy of this. It's a draft. If there are other ideas, certainly the board can take an action, provide those ideas in terms of corrections or modifications to this draft motion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was privy to the first meeting we had last Thursday. Since then, everybody that was there was on board. The school committee is going to have a meeting next week, and they're going to vote on adopting whatever comes through from the, we turn over to the capital planning to go over all of it, and they're on board. So seems like everybody's trying to work for the good of the town. So if anybody has any questions at this time, we'll hear them.
Mr. Chair, just a couple questions. Under number 1, a complete financial analysis of the busing and transportation needs of the Wareham Public School District. Is that going to be an analysis of dollars not just today but projected out over a period of time? Because I think when we get into the conversation of doing this in-house and going out these different scenarios, we're looking at it in a very small period of time when, in truth, the cost to either, could be exponentially different 5 years from now. So would that be included in this analysis? What is going to comprise this?
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, there would be a current analysis in the current dollars. And as we know, the time value of money varies given what's happening with the economy and the stock market. But I would expect that some form of pro forma projection would be included, both on the item number 1, which would be the current financial analysis of what we have today, and the second part, which would include some form of evaluation. And I know this has been talked about for a long time, but how would the private sector view this? What advantages could they have, given the fact that there's a pro forma for the public side, and then there would be a projection of pro forma on the private side?
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. The only comment that I would make, I really liked Mr. Holmes' idea of hiring a consultant, but I know we can't really afford to spend money on this, so I really like this idea. And what I would like to see happen is, after this study is completed, that it be turned over to a committee similar to the one that was suggested by Mrs. Begley last week to perhaps either review, be a review committee like we've done for Westfield, or be an implementation committee if we're going to maintain the busing in-house. Because I do think that it would be a good idea to have people completely dedicated to this issue, like we've done for Westfield, although this is something that I'm really looking to see. I'm really looking to see an honest-to-goodness, apples-to-apples comparison of what we have, what's available to us, and how much we're truly spending, and what is in fact more comprehensive. I know in the past we've put together committees to deal with the busing issue on a couple of occasions. So the only suggestion I would have to this draft motion, Mr. Chair, is that we do include a committee to review and advise and potentially implement at the conclusion of this study.
Any other questions? Well, we do have a committee. It's the Capital Planning Committee, and that is a viable committee. I think it's been doing a good job. We have competent people on it. And as it says, it'll be with the Capital Planning Committee in charge of the chairman. And then at number 4, it says, the Board of Selectmen includes the Board of Selectmen, the Wareham School Committee, Wareham Finance, and the Wareham Capital. If you can't get the best of the best right there, why do we have to have another committee? They are coming back to us. They're going to get a finding with all possibilities of running the school transportation system. So it's not going to be, oh, this is what we're going to have and nothing. And everybody's in agreement. The school committee is in agreement. If they go along with this, with the planning committee, I don't think anybody talked to the planning committee yet, because we need verification for everybody. And like I said, school committee is going to vote in favor, we hope, at their next meeting, which I think is next week, is either Tuesday or Wednesday. And it looks good. For the first time, as we said, two together, we work as one unit. We're starting to work together as a unit. And it's going to achieve the same, whatever we were trying to get, it's going to achieve the same thing, because we're looking for better transportation for our children. And whatever they come up with, these are graduates. They're going to go up. They're impartial. They're going to do the best job they can. They'll come back to us, presenting it to us. What they get, they're not going to tell us what we need to do. They're going to come back, present it to us, and then we're going to make the decision.
Mr. Chair, I completely understand.
Let's make a statement and,
Yeah.
and not debate. You made your statement, Mr. Snyder.
Mr. Chairman, as I understand this, the Capital Planning Committee has looked at this issue for a couple of years now. So I'm kind of trying to figure out and wrap my hands around what's going to make this process different than what has transpired over the last couple of years. I'm also looking at item number 4, which says a presentation of the completed comprehensive study will be made at a public hearing that includes the Wareham Board of Selectmen, the Wareham School Committee, the Wareham Finance Committee, and the Wareham Capital Planning Committee. The transportation is something that is overseen, that is the responsibility of this board to look at, and perhaps, when appropriate, delegate authority to other boards. But I fail to see how university students, what they would necessarily know about school bus safety issues, because they're not CDL drivers and they're not school bus instructors, school bus driving instructors. They're not in the transportation industry. So we're not, all I see here is we're evaluating the financial component of it. We're not evaluating the safety component. And that's, I think, is a key and critical piece to this whole issue. Because from my standpoint, as I said last week, I think that we should be looking at this as what's an acceptable safety rate for the school buses, because that's going to have a direct impact on the bottom line of the financial side.
I appreciate your comment. It does say draft motion.
I understand.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Well, as I'm looking at this motion, I would change 2011 to 2012 because that's already gone by, and we didn't get a study. And I would add a number 5 to this because I know last week you didn't want us to talk about the past. I recall that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
So I would add a number 5 to this motion, look into the future. And while I'm looking at 1 through 4, I don't want 5 happening, so I would add until this study's complete, there is to be no borrowing, purchasing, or leasing of any new school buses by the town of Wareham. So, I mean, I think that in the end, once this study's done, I would go back to Mrs. Begley and make sure that she's the one who brought this up, forming that committee, right? I understand you have a group that gets together, and that's fine. But I think that if she's satisfied, I'll be satisfied. But I tend to think that she's not right now. I can hear her on that side, so I'll let her talk.
Right, and then with this committee, that's the reason why they want it back with that deadline time frame is because they have things ready for the spring town meeting. So I don't think anything's going to take place until then. But anyway, Mrs. Begley.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz.
Go ahead.
I am smiling. Of course I'm smiling.
Always.
I have to disagree with this motion. I agree with having the graduate students. I think that everybody wins if the graduate students are able to come. They'll be able to compile data. They'll be able to fulfill obligations for their graduate studies, etc. However, I agree with previous speakers and that all aspects of the transportation issues need to be addressed. So they can certainly compile data. They are not experts in the transportation field. Granted, this was going to give them valuable practicums on this. But I noticed even on number 1, a complete financial analysis of the busing and transportation needs. I want to know what the current analysis is of what the transportation status is and see where we go from there. So I think that there are multiple aspects to this whole this whole thing. And it's not just, I mean, capital planning absolutely assesses, they go to each department, they assess the capital and the infrastructure needs of the community, but I think that there's a lot more to this. I think that the safety issues, where we are, how is the transportation program being run now? We don't have all of that information. So we need to know how it's run now and where we can go. And we also need to be able to project costs. That, as Mrs. Winslow has pointed out, we cannot do a quick fix. And just, certainly we can't afford to go out and just buy 40 buses. But we need to know, not be short-sighted about this. We're going to buy X or lease X this year, X next year, or this is what it's going to cost us this year. We have to know what this is going to cost the town of Wareham in the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years, all the while keeping the children of this town safe. So I would prefer having the committee that would oversee these students. And I think that by having a member of the FinCom, a member of the Board of Selectmen, school committee, capital planning, and 3 citizens at large, these are going to be people that are going to be able to assess all of the aspects and have these students be information gatherers. I just feel that this would be a very, very public forum. People would be able to attend these meetings. This would be a public body. They'd be able to have input or just see the process. I think that having so much done that is not in a public forum does not help bring everybody on board and onto the same page. So I prefer going with my first idea of the committee, and the students would be answerable to them.
I think getting back to the committee is going to be answerable to all of us. Capital planning is going to oversee getting the students to do their job. They're not going to tell them what to do and what not to do. The first one, a complete financial analysis of the bus and transportation needs. So that answers your question. They're going to do a complete analysis of the transportation needs. So when they say complete financial, that's everything, what it costs, what it needs to be, and everything else. The evaluation of privatizing, that's if we go out and get it. There may be something else when they all come down, but I think this is a start in the right direction. We need to try to get along and go with this. Committee, we have a committee. I'm going to go back, Capital Planning Committee. They have finance, they have planning, they have other, what else? They have other committees on it. Plus, they have the school committee, finance committee. What more can you want? We have it all. School committee's on here, the Wareham School Committee.
When they report,
the
Mr. Cruz.
You had the best of all things. You had Mr. Andrews, Barry, who's in charge of the school department, superintendent, Jeff Sweat, the chairman of the school committee, myself, and the chairman of the finance committee.
But that wasn't a public meeting, Mr. Cruz.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a public. We were trying to get things started so we can come back to you and report. So this is the report that we're giving back, and we're hoping that we can get started. We don't want to bring up anything in the past, but it hasn't been working. This is guaranteed. School department's on board. I think we can get on board. They're willing to go with it. It's a start, and later on it's going to be until before March they come back with the information, but we need to get started so we can get it. To get a committee going, that's going to take 3 weeks or more. Mr. Snyder was first, I think.
Mr. Chairman, the obvious question to me on number 2 is it says an evaluation of privatizing the busing and transportation needs of the Wareham Public School District. What are we going to evaluate them against if it's not going out to bid? How are we going to evaluate the costs, apples to apples? How are we going to put an apples to apples comparison together?
Well, when they get the committee together, if they're going to privatize it, how are they going to do it if they didn't know the cost? And then they'll have to get the bids. Then they'll know how much it is, whether we're going to put it out to bid or not.
Right, but what would stop us from just putting it out to bid today and putting out an apples to apples comparison for the bids? And the school committee can bid just like any other bidder.
Okay, see, that's just what's happened with the committee. We got 5 members here. We're discussing. Everybody wants to do it their way. We got a committee that's going to get graduate students that's going to go out and get all the information that they need. If you say that's what they need, that's what they're going to go out to get. If you say complete financial analysis, if you want to break it down finer than that to complete the financial analysis, then we can do it. The evaluation of privatizing, they are going to, how are you going to privatize if you don't get any bids? You know, you have to get a bid. They'll probably recommend it, find out how much it's going to cost, and the only way you're going to know how much it's going to cost is go out for bid once you find out how many buses you need, the routes, and everything else that goes along with it.
But that's my point, Mr. Chairman. Why wouldn't we just put it out to bid sooner rather than later? Because we're going to need those bids in order to have something to compare what the school
All this is
department's
going to have to
spending.
go up with the town meeting, which is in the spring, the financial. We need to have everything in a row for that. Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, the one thing about this entire discussion is that I think that each of us brings an interesting perspective to the table. And, you know, I really like Mrs. Begley's idea of a committee. I really like Mr. Holmes's idea of a consultant. And I really like the work that you and Mr. Andrews did last Thursday during your meeting, because I do think that while we don't all necessarily agree with what's on this paper, I think we can all agree that this is something more than we had a week ago, which is a step in the right direction. So for that, I commend you for that hard work. And Mr. Schneider, you know, you obviously bring a great deal of knowledge to the table. I don't think that we can make this motion perfect, but I do think that we need to get the ball rolling. So I'm going to take a stab at it and see if I can accomplish something that will meet all of our needs. Did you have something else? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Schneider. Mike, if I remember last year about this time or a few months, you were on a transportation committee with Kenny Fonts, and that committee was suspended at that time. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what the status of that group is, but certainly they were all actively involved in this, right? And maybe we could include them, and maybe that would... That's the committee that I think Mrs. Begley's mentioning, so maybe we could unsuspend them and bring them into this fold here, since they did a lot of work on safety issues, as I recall. There were reports that were done, so they had a lot of information as well.
So,
and they might be able to help this group of because I like the idea. The kids can do, young people can do a great job as well. But I think that committee had a lot of valuable information. That
if you think the committee and the school children are going to do a good job, children, graduates, yeah, they're all children to me. But anyways, if you think, well, let's make a motion. Let's make a motion to go along with getting with the capital family to work on getting the graduates on this, and then we can work on the committee. Because to me, we already have a committee. We have a bona fide committee that's been together for over a year, 2 years, because they've all been appointed for 3 years. So, you know, they're not going anywhere. You said they disbanded the other one.
No, they suspended
it. Mr. Chair, if you and the board will, let me try and make the motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Wait up, I think.
I'm not done.
I never got an answer. I never got an answer to my question, Mr. Chairman, so I think I still have the piece of the rug. Mr. Schneider?
Yes, you do. You do.
Would you answer my question?
The school, there was a transportation, it was a subcommittee of the school department. It was not a committee of this board. I believe that this board did vote initially to form that committee, but somehow it ended up being a subcommittee of the school department, or somewhat a committee. There is a ton of information that was done on those, that was done on throughout that process, information that we wanted to present to the entire committee that never got presented. It's a duffel bag full of information related to the school buses, and I think that absolutely, you know, there are members on that committee who did have a lot to offer as far as, you know, the needs of the school buses and the transportation department, and some actual knowledge in transportation and what we need as far as buses. So I think that absolutely that committee could be useful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schneider. Yeah, it's just...
One last comment. I know that Mrs. Winslow is eager to make a motion, so I just want to speak to the current motion here. I know you have to go. You know, requesting the chair of the Capital Planning Committee to engage a college or university students is an awesome idea, Mr. Cruz. I absolutely agree with this, and I agree with a number of the points that you made on the draft motion. However, again, I can't express enough how much I want this to be a transparent process. And I understand where you're coming from, saying that there are certain committees that are represented on capital planning. However, the people that are not represented on capital planning is a voting member of the Board of Selectmen and a voting member of the school committee. And I don't understand why this board would be reluctant to have those students under the direction of a committee that I've kind of been lobbying for. And again, just to reiterate, it would be a member of the Finance Committee, a member of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the School Committee, a member of Capital Planning, 3 citizens at large, so that we'd have an odd number, and the town administrator and school superintendent would be ex officio members and not have a vote. I think that you're absolutely correct that we need to start somewhere. But again, I think that there's so much that is kind of done behind closed doors out of necessity to probably get the process rolling, and I understand that. But I think that this community craves the transparency that I'm asking for, and I don't think it's an unreasonable request.
Mrs. Winslow?
If I may just make one more comment, Mr. Chairman. What this is missing is we're handing this to the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee for the students, but we're not giving them any direction for this board wants this the Capital Planning Committee to follow.
That's what this draft.
You're going to try? Okay.
I'm going to make a stab
That's what
at
this
it.
draft motion is for. And to Mrs. Bagley's question, it was viable and everything else, but every one that she mentioned is right here. School Committee, Finance Committee, Capital Planning. Everyone's here except for the 3 citizens at large. And if you say Mr. Andrews is on there and Mr. Barry is on there, what more do you need on it? Go ahead, Mrs. Winslow, so we can get this. I know it doesn't say, but we could have the same committee. We could have these as
Okay, I'm gonna give this a try.
Go ahead.
Is everybody ready? Okay. I move to request the chair of the Capital Planning Committee to engage college and/or university students to develop and complete a comprehensive study of the busing and transportation needs of the Wareham Public School District. Said study shall include the following components: a complete analysis of the busing and transportation needs of the Wareham Public School District, including our current state, costs of operation, and safety standards. An evaluation of privatizing the busing and transportation needs of the Wareham Public School District, including costs and impacts on safety. The comprehensive study is due no later than March 1st, 2012. A presentation of the completed comprehensive study will be made at a public meeting that includes the Wareham Board of Selectmen, the Wareham School Committee, the Wareham Finance Committee, and the Wareham Capital Planning Committee. Until the study is complete, there shall be no borrowing, leasing, or procurement of any kind of a school bus. Finally, the Board of Selectmen, upon being presented with the comprehensive study, shall appoint a committee to review the feasibility of the options contained in the study. Said committee may serve as an RFP committee, an implementation committee, and complete any other tasks the Board of Selectmen deems necessary. The committee should include one member of the Board of Selectmen, one member of the Finance Committee, one member of the School Committee, one member of the Capital Planning Committee, and 3 members at large.
Second.
Motion made by Karis, second by Steve. Any other discussion?
Did I get it all?
Steve, second.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure I got it all in the.
That was very nice.
I know.
If there isn't any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Now, if you'll all excuse me, and I do apologize to the viewing public. Unfortunately, a change of plans occurred, and I must head to the airport. I am a little.
Okay.
Shall. Yes. There's a big difference between may and shall, you know.
We'll go back to the
Mr. Clerk, it's all yours.
if I can see, we got through the. Hang on 1 second. We're going to the consent agenda. Bills.
Oh, it's your lucky night, Mr. Judici. I'm leaving.
Okay. Oh, look, they moved up. You didn't even have to ask them.
We got waved up by Mr. Andrews.
We got the cue.
Nice work. The first one is invoice number 1 for $24,964.03 for contract number 3.
Ouch.
Would someone explain what that is, please?
Well,
Certainly, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
That was for the bidding of the project. As you recall, the board asked that we put this project out to bid so that you could get actual construction costs as opposed to the estimates in order to make a decision in terms of moving forward with the project or not. So that's what that invoice was for. That was work we did back in April, May, June timeframe to put that contract out to bid, accept bids, evaluate bids.
And that was, oh, I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. And that was at the meeting we had in the
June 28th.
auditorium.
Auditorium, right.
Where the board wanted to know what that number was, right?
That's correct.
Who pays for that? Since there are no contract 3 users, who do we spread that out across?
It's not a question I can answer, Mr. Holmes.
Well, that's a good question, Mr. Holmes, if I'm.
I think,
I would assume, through you, Mr. Chairman,
thank you.
that that'll be paid through the user's rate, through the enterprise fund.
So all of the users, Mr. Chairman, who were expecting contract 3 to come online, and those users to offset or reduce their costs, their sewer fees, are now expected to pay this $24,000 bill because the town didn't move forward with the project.
I think that's what he said. It's an enterprise fund,
And
it's self-sufficient.
Mr. Judici, understand that this, the issue is not about whether or not you did the work on the contract. The issue is the fact that we have now this $24,000 bill that we're asking sewer users to foot the bill for work that's not going to move forward.
If I could just make one comment.
Yes, go ahead.
That's the only avenue I can see where the monies would come from. Unless we go to a special article for the next town meeting or whatever to pick up the cost, but it's...
Is this, Mr. Chairman, is this going to be the total cost associated with Contract 3, or are there other costs associated with Contract 3 that have already been paid or will need to be paid in the future?
This is for the bidding. This would be the final cost. There were costs for design, and we designed the project to put it out to bid. That was over and above this amount. That invoice, those invoices over the course of several years had been paid in the past.
Okay. And again, Mr. Judici, I understand.
I understand.
It's very upsetting to me as, you know, I'm putting my hat on as a sewer commissioner, not as a selectman, and also as a sewer user. And I have to say that, you know, I also feel the need to know how much the design costs were. Are we talking $100,000? Are we talking $20,000? What are we talking in costs that the sewer users are going to pick up for work that the town is not going to complete?
I don't have the exact numbers here, but it's on the magnitude of $100,000 to $150,000 if I had to guess. I can certainly get you that number.
So it's about $200,000 plus the 25, so $250,000 almost?
Any other questions? Go ahead. Mr. Begley.
I was going to ask the same question. I was kind of, perusing these before we came into this meeting, and it did catch my eye when it said Contract 3. And this said that the contract upper limit for project is $191,700 for professional engineering services. So the other services have not been provided, so we're not on the hook for that yet.
Correct. That was part of a services during construction contract, that total.
Right, I understand.
Bidding is included in that, so those monies would not be expended.
I understand. So far, nearly $25,000 has been expended, but that doesn't include the design phase, of course, or the other expenses that you talked about. So we're talking about almost, we're talking over $200,000. So almost $250,000 that has to be paid, that has been paid, or $200,000 has been paid.
If I may, I
Yes.
actually do have a number here, and it was on the order of $500,000 for design, $510,000.
So we're either going to, what was your suggestion, Mr. Gifford?
Well, I think right now it's going to have to come out of the enterprise fund and be assessed to all the users.
So you're asking people who are already on sewer, who have already either paid their betterments or in the process of paying their betterments, paying nearly $600 a year for sewer use, to absorb $500,000 in addition for a project that hasn't been done.
Well, I'm not asking.
I understand.
I'm on sewer.
I understand. So this is $500,000 that should have been absorbed by Contract 3 sewer users once they went on sewer. Is that correct?
Correct.
I can't vote to pay this bill right now. I would prefer to do a little bit more research on Contract 3 and see where we stand. As far as I know, it's simply been tabled. It doesn't mean that we're not going to go forward. However, as it stands, these bills have already been paid. Correct?
Not this one.
Not this one.
Not this one. No, the others have.
So $500,000 less $24,000 has been paid. I would prefer to hold off on this particular bill.
Second.
May I just ask a question, Mr. Chairman? At the meeting that we had back in the town hall cafeteria, there was a discussion about bringing on additional areas to reduce the costs for Contract 3. And has anything taken place on that?
Well, right now, I think we're out of order. We're here for the bills.
Well, I think it's,
If we need
Mr.
a
Chairman,
discussion
I understand,
on
but
that, I think we should bring it up at another time.
I understand, but I think it's relative because of the costs associated with this project.
Well,
$500,000 is a lot of money
Right.
to expect the sewer users to foot the bill for.
Right, and the same thing, if we went ahead with the project, it would have been $37,000 for each sewer user, so we can get up with Mr. Andrews and the Finance Committee and find out how we're going to, recoup this without putting a hardship on the other ones. So the motion right now is to put a hold on this. Second by, that was motion by Mrs. Begley. Second by Mr. Holmes. Steve, right? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 3. Yeah, 3-1.
Mr. Cruz, could we please put contract 3 on the next agenda, a discussion, because this is fairly serious.
Okay. For the girls in the office, contract 3 on the next agenda.
Okay, make a motion that we pay invoice number 12 for services from June 26, 2011 to August 20th, 2011, the amount of $60,039.97 under contract 2.
Is that a motion, Mr. Holmes?
And a second by Mrs. Bagley.
Bagley? The reason why I'm asking is because the girls in the office really don't catch it on the tape, so.
Okay.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0.
I make a motion that we pay invoice number 13 for project and operational services from July 24th to August 20th in the amount of $8,280.31 on contract 2.
Motion made. Motion second by Mrs. Begley. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0-0.
Okay. I make a motion that we pay invoice number 12 for bidding project management operational services from June 26, 2011 through July 23, 2011 in the amount of $9,864.38 under contract 2.
Motion made. Second by Mrs. Begley. Any questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0-0.
I make a motion that we pay invoice number 15. Come on. Looking for my magic number here. There it is. For engineering services from August 15th, 2009 and December 4th. I'm sorry. Scratch that. I make a motion that we pay invoice 15 for professional engineering services from June 26, 2011 through July 23, 2011 in the amount of $1,632.27 under contract 1.
Motion made and second by Mrs. Begley. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0-0.
Okay. Make a motion that we pay invoice number 17 for professional engineering services from July 24th, 2011 to August 20th, 2011 in the amount of $809.07 under contract 1.
Motion made. Second by Mrs. Begley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0-0.
And I make a motion that we pay invoice number 16 for professional engineering services from June 26th, 2011 through July 23rd, 2011 in the amount of $1,137.78.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. State, Mike.
Ah,
There,
I had to be there.
yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0-0.
Make a motion that we pay all Board of Selectmen mortgage payments. I thought I'd catch you off guard there. Anything else?
I didn't know if you wanted Mr. Giudice to give a quick update on where we are with contract 2.
Yeah, and I have talked to Mark about giving us minutes every week, where we're at, where we stand. It's like before, we used to have the meetings every other week or twice a month.
Correct.
Since we stopped the meeting, we haven't had any feedback. So we need to have something written out
Okay.
so we can keep track, find out where we're at
Sure.
and how we're doing. Thank you.
Just to give you a quick overview, all 4 of the stations and pumping stations in contract 2, as you know, which were essentially the last item, have been started and tested satisfactorily. On Friday of this week, there'll be some noise testing associated with the generators being performed. The paving at each of the stations has been completed at this point. We have issued what we call a punch list to the contractor, which is a final list of items that need to be completed before the project is closed out. So they're working on those issues, and they will be over the next several weeks. So once that is done, they'll come in and give training to town staff on the operation of the 4 stations, which is essentially identical to the other stations that we've installed under the first contract. And then we'll look to turn the system over to the town at that point, once the training's completed.
Any questions from the board? Mike? Mr. Baker?
Hi, Mike. A couple issues from the last meeting that I had attended at the trailer. Was the SIM card issue resolved? There was SIM card issues SIM card issues were resolved?
I believe so.
And then there was an issue with a pump that was being switched off, or...
At the
Something
Linwood
happened?
station,
Mhm.
I think those issues have been resolved as well.
Yes and no. We had a problem today. The pump ran for 9 hours because of some type of miscommunication. Again, we emailed Mr. Giosio, who's now our contact, and not Giosio, and I haven't heard from him. Yes, we feel we're going to put the other pump on, we're going to check it tomorrow. We feel that pump is burnt out. I'll let you know all of that. So we have this into Giosio that we do have issues with it. We haven't signed off on it. We haven't said we're done. So we're going to continue following this up until we get a resolution finally. So yes, there's still an issue on Wood Station. Yes.
But that'll be put on a punch list. So,
Mr. Holmes, any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just real
Mr.
quick.
Andrews?
Michael, through you too, Mr. Chairman. Would the training sessions be videotaped so that as we bring on new hires that we would have that material handy?
They're typically not, but if that's something that I think would be easier for the town to arrange, we could certainly coordinate that. With
That's what I'm suggesting.
Whether it's
Yes.
certainly, yeah, we'll make sure you're aware of when that's going to happen.
So we'd have a DVD
And-
for anybody that we
Sure.
brought on or new people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good idea. Thank you. Anything else? If not, thank you very much. We'll be
Thank you.
looking forward for the updates and the sign-offs.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if we could continue on with the
Yes.
consent agenda.
well, that's right,
All right.
absolutely.
We have one bill here. I make a motion that we pay legal bill invoice 2003054 for $314.50 to Miaras in Harrington.
Second for discussion.
As
First by Steve, second by Mike.
Considering our current policy, I'm wondering how this bill has come about. Was this approved by either the Board of Selectmen or the town administrator? This gentleman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Go ahead.
through you, Mr. Chairman, to the board. This was a call and follow-up, I believe, conversations with regards to the Bay Point situation, and I did approve it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other question?
I don't think that answered his question.
No. Why this attorney and not the attorney why wasn't it Mr. Tallerman or Attorney Bowen? Is there a reason why CETA had to call someone that would have to pay separately? I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, we've had Mr. Miaras working with CETA as long as I've been here, and in the proposal that we received from Mr. Bowen, the services not included, he will assist. But
Okay.
my understanding is that
All right.
Mr. Meyer is the,
Cedar attorney.
that's my understanding. If the board wants to take another approach to it, I'm happy to entertain that.
Any other question?
Is that right?
I think that's from Bay Point, right? Yes. Yeah. You know, that was Mr. Harron, that's from Bay Point.
I guess from my standpoint, I'm wanting to make sure that we're following the proper process. And is there a specific reason, Mr. Andrews, why CETA has its own attorney, its own counsel?
They function a little bit differently from other departments, through you, Mr. Chairman. And in this particular case, Mr. Mayor has been expert in the field of community and economic development, and that's my understanding why he's on board. That's why he is on board working with the CETA offices.
So, Mr. Andrews, are you saying that CETA contracted directly with this firm, or did the town through the town administrator or the Board of Selectmen?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, through you, it was prior to my coming here, but my understanding is that they were on board through the processes that would allow them to be on board, but following the same procedures as other departments.
Mr. Chairman, through you to my fellow board members and to Mr. Andrews, you know, I realize that we just worked on a policy for council, but I've also come across another policy for council dated October 6, 2009, Policy 0903. And I'd like to just read it, a portion of it briefly for my fellow board members. Policy 0903, Code of Conduct, Contract Services. The right to bind the town in contract under both state and local law, including the Wareham Home Rule Charter and the town bylaws, is strictly regulated. The charter authorizes the town administrator to enter into contracts, some of which are subject to approval by the Board of Selectmen. Further, the bylaws provide that the Board of Selectmen is the appointing authority for town council and is responsible for approving the use of town council by established case law makes clear that no municipal department or entity has authority to hire special legal counsel for municipal purposes other than pursuant to an applicable statute, bylaw, or charter provision, or with the approval of the Board of Selectmen. Thus, it shall be the policy of the town of Wareham that, except as otherwise provided by statute, the town charter or bylaws, no municipal employee, board, committee, commission, or official may contract for services, including legal counsel, without the approval of the town administrator or Board of Selectmen as appropriate. I think based on this policy, we need to...
What was the number?
Policy 0903, Steve.
0903.
Dated October 6, 2009.
So, Mr. Andrews, if you can send a memo out to the CETA department and inform them that any counsel that they need needs to come to us.
Mr. Chairman, well, I guess my point in this is, you know, we've been grappling with this issue now for several weeks, and it seems like we're finding policy after policy. I'd like to make sure that we have a complete copy of the policies, and I'd like to make sure that these policies that our boards, committees also have copies of them, along with our employees, because these are actions that, if they're being taken against policy, we have policies for a reason, and we're supposed to be enforcing them. And I want to make sure that we are enforcing them.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, in my experience with this particular invoice, obviously the guy did the work, he has to get paid for it. But the same phone call and the same documents, for the most part, were reviewed by town council. We double paid on this bill. The discussion with Mr. Harriman, I wasn't on the phone, obviously, but our town council called Mr. Harriman, and our town council reviewed the document on the right of first refusal. This is probably the document on the parking lot. So I don't understand, and this didn't happen before the town administrator was hired. This happened in September of 2011. this set of bills. That's what they're from, September 7th and September 30th. They went out and used this lawyer, because they always do. And the point I believe my colleagues are trying to make is, and that I'm certainly making, is that we had town council working on this exact project of Bay Point, right of first refusal, working with DFCU. And why couldn't our guy have done it under the same costs instead of having another lawyer in separate billing? So if we have the policy, we should follow it or get rid of the policy and let people do what they want. The policy is designed, as I recall, is to help the town to stay within their budget. Now, I understand it's CETA money, but you know what? There is no, to me, there's no CETA money. The money is all the same. How we spend that money, if we don't spend it on Miaras, we could spend it on something else. So I just think that this is a little bit of double dipping with attorneys when we could have just had town council do it by the policy.
Any other question?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just briefly. I'll go back and check the telephone logs because I log all my calls, and I will determine whether or not this could have been a separate matter that Mr. Mears was responding to questions from the CETA board, and I'll check it out and I'll report back to the board on the matter.
And Mr. Andrews, as I remarked earlier, I need a memo going out to all department heads that have attorneys, right? Just to reiterate, because even though you got 0903, I think the new policy says it supersedes all others, so, and it still comes out to the same. We are, so the motion was the motion seconded by Mike? Yeah. No other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400.
We have a couple of minutes from March 22nd. March 22nd, 2011. Make a motion that we approve as written. You have to second.
Okay, second. I guess you and I are the only ones going to vote.
Yeah.
Since this was done in March 11.
Right.
Okay, Steve and Walt. 202.
Okay. The next one is from April the 5th. One moment. I'm sorry, did I say, I think I said March 21st. That was actually March 22nd.
22nd, right, okay.
The next set, dated meeting is March 22nd. The next set is from April 5th, 2011. I make a motion that we approve as written. Mr. Chairman, I need you to second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
202.
And just give me 1 second. This says
May 23rd.
oh, right, I got it. I make a motion that we approve the minutes of May 23rd, 2011 as written.
Second. All in favor?
Well, actually, the other members were here, so they could second. Did you second? We only need 1 second.
Well, I already second, so go ahead. Yeah. We have one more after this.
Did we have other minutes in addition to these that weren't? Yes. They came on town email. Okay, that's fine. I seconded. I'm good.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 400. Okay, Steve, I guess it's just you and I on this one.
Yeah, hang on 1 second. Well, that was the other page. That's the one I did first. I mixed them up. And we have some executive
approving.
Sorry? Right. We have some executive session minutes from March 22nd. I was here, Mr. Cruz was here.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, he'll make the motion, I think, in a second.
I make a motion that, let me just see what the issue was. Right. I make a motion to approve and hold the executive session minutes of March 22nd as written.
Second.
Mr.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman.
0.
Mr. Snyder has a question.
Just, I'm looking at these minutes, and I'm not even sure why we would be holding them, because there's no information in here for me to make a determination as to what the meeting was
Well,
about.
it says see attached,
Right.
and I think that's what the attachment was. We had already gotten something from the lawyer saying we can accept it, but hold the attachment, but the attachment's part of the minutes. So if we're going to hold it, everything gets held. And like I said, last year, Shirley and I and the lawyer went through all the holes. So how are we going to do it? Maybe twice a year we go through all the holes and take them off.
Two things, Mr. Cruz. And I share Selectman Schneider's confusion. Is there any way that we could be updated if this is an ongoing issue? Certainly not in a public forum. And could we be supplied with the attached report so that we understand what's
Sure can.
being discussed?
It's all, yeah, and for us, I guess it's our public information. Like I said, we can have a standard thing that we do it twice a year. That way to give the lawyers time to look at it. We won't have to go through what we did last year. It took us about a couple of days.
You know, Mr. Chairman, this is collective bargaining, which we voted on in open session. There was an email we were getting from Alana, which she secured and sent to us, and they're no longer with us. So,
But the last email we got, which was this week, I think Rich said we can release this.
I didn't get that email.
But hold on the attachment. If the attachment is part of the email, we'll just hold.
All right. So you're doing that on the advice of town council.
Right.
Okay.
Rich Bowman. So that'll be on the list, the holes. So whenever we decide to go through the holes for this year, past year,
All right.
we can.
But I just had one other question. I certainly wasn't on the board on April 5th, but it looks like there's a good deal of the minutes that are missing. Oh, maybe it was just summarized, but when it says Selectman Ekstrom read into the record a letter in response to an allegation by Selectman Ekstrom and Donahue of violation of the open meeting law, will that, if it says read into the record a letter, will that be attached to these minutes?
We did.
There's
Well, they have it in
nothing
the
on
office.
these minutes that says that there's an attachment.
We turned in the letter.
Okay, so they're not attached to the minutes?
Not on these.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
But we did, any of those documents we had that night, we gave to the office. I think there were a few. Just that, usually we leave a copy of something, and it goes to the office.
Mr. Chairman, that actually raises another good point. I don't recall seeing any
Attachment.
resolution on the complaint or response to the open meeting law complaint.
I don't even know if there was any.
Can we follow up on that just to make sure that we're...
That was back in April.
Right.
Now I remember.
I think there was a response. There was, right?
This is not a public meeting.
All right,
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Let's stick with the agenda.
Did we vote on that
Mr.
202, Mr. Chairman? So we can move on?
Okay, we can move on. Thank you.
No, we actually have to vote on that. We didn't vote on
Yeah,
that.
you and I.
Yeah. You got a call?
202.
Okay. You did call the vote.
Yep.
I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
I wrote it down, so.
Town Administrator's report.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the members of the board and listening audience, we have the next leadership team update from Denise Medeiros to update the board regarding state aid. In your packet is a current worksheet. And Denise, if you can bring us up to speed with regards to where we stand on that process.
Sure. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here melting with you because it is definitely hot. The State Aid to Public Libraries program, just to refresh people's memories for the ones who I know have heard this often, but there are a lot of people out there that still aren't familiar with the program, so just for people in the audience too. The Mass Board of Library Commissioners are the ones that administer the program. You apply on an annual basis, and it's been administered from the Board of Library Commissioners since like 1890. There have been changes to the program, but it's been around for a real long time. It has a long history. The program is voluntary, but 97% of the public libraries in Massachusetts do participate. And the benefits of the program is it does supply local public libraries with local aid that comes directly from the state for use to run public libraries. And it allows the libraries to have reciprocal borrowing privileges with all the other libraries in the state of Massachusetts. It gives us access to library services through the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. It gives us access to grants and databases that are paid through the state. There are requirements that go along with being part of the program, and those include the hours that the library is open, and that's based on the town's population. The materials expenditure piece, which is based on a percentage of the town's appropriation to the library, and then the municipal appropriation requirement, which we often refer to as the MAR, which is based on the library's funding history. And that's an average of 3 years of appropriations plus 2.5%. And communities that don't meet the requirement can apply for a waiver. And waivers are normally limited by statute to 10 a year, but lately with the economy they've been putting in budget language that raises that. In the last several years they've had unlimited waivers. So that's basically how the program itself works. What I want to do is bring you up to date on where the Wareham Free Library stands in relation to the program. So as far as the hours open requirement goes, full compliance for Wareham based on its population would have the library open 50 hours per week, 5 days and some evening hours. Mid-level compliance would be 45 hours a week, and minimum compliance is 40 hours a week. So currently we're open 40.5 hours a week, 5 days a week. We have some evening hours. So we're at the minimum compliance as far as our hours open go. Materials expenditure for 100% full compliance of our operating budget on materials for the library, which includes books and magazines and audiobooks, anything along those lines. 13.5% is mid-level, and right now we're at full compliance with that. So we have spent in the past fiscal year 15% of our operating budget on books and materials. I do have to mention that a lot of that happened because of the Wareham Library Foundation, the Friends of the Wareham Free Library, and some individual donors, because the total donation from those two groups and individuals for FY11 was $29,720.75, because I've been tracking that since I got here for the fiscal year. So kudos to them. The municipal appropriation requirement piece, the FY12 MAR, the municipal appropriation requirement for the town, is now at $697,589. The town appropriated in FY12 $411,123. So the town is not meeting the MAR, the municipal appropriation requirement, and we can't be certified unless we have a waiver of the MAR. And we have applied for it, and then it's granted. So all the required documents for the waiver have been submitted. They have been received. I got an email a few days ago that they had everything that they needed. The library did receive an increase in the last fiscal year, so there won't be any need to attend a hearing in January, which is really good news. And the Board of Library Commissioners will meet in February, and that's when they act on the waiver applications. The benefits to the library: local aid money that comes directly to the town for FY11 was $13,822, and that was 75% of our state aid, because we are in minimum compliance for hours open and maximum compliance for the materials. They do reduce the amount of state aid that we received. If we had been in full compliance with our hours, we would have received $18,429. And that fluctuates from year to year depending on how much money is available in that budget. So with certification, we would retain access to our reciprocal services, and we could borrow materials from any of the certified libraries in Massachusetts, and retain access to our MBLC services. Grant opportunities: most recently we just received a 2-year grant for $15,000 for our teen services area. That we just got the first payment on that within the last couple of days. The town has received grant construction money in the past, and it does pay for those research databases that we have access to. Just to follow up on the state aid, if I can just have a couple more minutes, I just wanted to let you know that in 2010, the town of Wareham spent $14.36 per person on library services. And with that funding, people of all ages received access to 102,816 books, magazines, audiobooks, DVDs, ebooks, and more. Plus, they have access to millions of items in the libraries throughout the entire state. 142,098 items were borrowed from the library. 132 children's programs were held, and there were 2,149 people in attendance at those programs. 19 adult programs were held, and there were 521 people attending. 97 volunteers worked at the library, and they worked 3,358 hours. 17,069 people are active registered borrowers of the Wareham Library. 19 public use internet computers are provided, and the average number of users of those computers in a typical week is 420. The meeting rooms were used 506 times. We did a public library rally last February, had people fill out forms
Mr. Chairman,
on why my library matters to me. This is my last one.
I got to know. I got to ask you. How do you know that?
We do an information report for the board. It's part of the requirement. You don't get anything back from it, but they compile library statistics, and they're all available on the Mass Board of Library Commissioners website. You can actually take figures from this library system and compare them to libraries throughout the state. So
that's great.
They're librarians, so they tend to keep track of things like this. But one of the statements from why the Wareham Free Library matters to me, I looked through a few of them, and it didn't take me long before I got to one that I thought would be a good end to these statistics. And it's, books enrich my life in such a deep and meaningful way. I teach my children about the history of the world through information we find in books from this library. We would never be able to afford to buy all the books we use, so we're so happy to be able to get them here and enjoy them. The Wareham Free Library helps us learn and grow. And just one more minute to mention the fact that we do have a strategic plan. I made a copy of the public portion of it for you, but the full plan is and will be available on the warehamfreelibrary.org website. And we do have our mission, which is the Wareham Free Library is a comfortable and welcoming place that stimulates people's imaginations, creates young readers, and connects residents to the online world. We think it's really important right now with the limited funds that everyone has to have a very clear vision of the future of the library. So the 4 things that we really are focusing on in the next 5 years that will tie our budget request to continue to provide that reading and viewing and listening for pleasure that people come to us for, the bestsellers, the DVDs, the things that people really can't afford on their own. But the other piece that we really want to focus on too is like creating those young readers, the preschool, kids before they go to school. So they're in there and they're ready to start school, because we know that we're the only facility, public facility, that will focus in on that. And connecting to the online world, we have so many people that come into the library that don't have internet access, or they have a computer and they don't have the online connections at home. And right now, most job applications you can only apply online. Your taxes eventually, I think if you file a paper form, you get put in the bottom of the heap at this point. People coming in that are looking to set up free phones, looking for apartments, printing coupons. If you want to get an education someday, come down and stroll through the library in what I've been referring to as Computer Alley. And you can kind of glance over people's shoulders and just get an idea of the types of things that they're doing. And it really is incredible. And the last thing we want to focus in on is visiting a comfortable place, having a physical and virtual space at the library and through our website, so that people have that community connection. Yeah, that's it.
Denise, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I do. Since you have all those statistics, Ms. Medeiros.
They're not in my head, though.
Have you seen, I don't know if our community is affected. Do you think they were going to have much of an impact with the Kindles?
Actually, we've had some of an impact, but we do loan ebooks. We have a small collection right now, but it will be growing. And one of the big things that just happened is that Amazon has allowed public libraries to participate. They've decided that, I guess they had enough input back from people that they wanted to be able to borrow materials from their libraries, and they have since come up with a program that will allow Kindle users, before the other ebook readers, you could borrow through the libraries. So I see it coming. It's going to take some time, not even on a money part for us. It's more the rules and regulations of who gets the money and the copyright issues. And
well, it's definitely affected bookstores.
Yes.
No question there.
Yeah.
Now, my second question is, what was the appropriated budget for FY 2011?
411. That includes the revolving fund. So 411.
In 2011, not 2012.
Not 2012. It was up by almost 20%, over 25% with the revolving fund. So that, I don't remember the exact.
But it was an increase.
It was.
Your budget was an increase.
It was.
So this, what we're seeing here, the FY 2012 is not a decrease. Is that correct?
Right.
It may be.
That is correct.
Is it level? It may be level funded or up a little.
It's more than level funded. We worked really hard on getting the monies back in for some library salaries, people that were already working there, and we added a head of reference position.
So it's an increase.
It is.
So, that certainly for the library commissioners should speak volumes, that we take our library seriously, but in this economy, I cannot imagine that they're going to, they must have a line snaking out the door for municipal libraries that are desperate to maintain their certification.
I believe 1 out of 4 libraries in the state now has applied for a waiver.
That's extraordinary.
Well, and that's
25%.
last year. I don't know if it's going to increase.
Oh, I'm sure it's increased this year. If the news stories that we see in the paper are any indication, people used to donate to food pantries and different services are now clients themselves. This is a very difficult economy, and we've not had to shut our library down. So I think that's something for the town of Wareham.
Right, and I think that Mr. Andrews has been, very good about promoting libraries and knows the importance of education in the town. And we did work well together on putting together a budget that was viable, and we hope to keep doing so in the future. I mean, our long-range plan at this moment in time with the economy the way it is to try to do it in small increments and not try to, get it all back at once. And it really is an interesting task, because I always heard about zero-based budgeting, and basically I feel like that's what we're doing right now. We're rebuilding a service. But it really is good, because you can really focus in on the services you want to provide and make decisions based on that. So that's the plan going forward. So, and we would look for your support for that.
Thank you.
First, I want to comment on this brochure, the Wareham Free Library Strategic Plan. I think it's a great handout for people, and it's nice to see something like this coming from the library. No, I understand. I know that your budget increased, but I also know that is the revolving fund that you had budgeted for your utility. You were having a utility issue, I think, at the library because of the increases in the costs for electricity. Is that included as part of this?
It is. We had a shortfall last year that we paid out of some state aid funding, and then figured out that if we could increase what we could spend out of our revolving fund, we could actually use that. We increased our electricity line so we won't have that shortfall again this year. But then the money now in our revolving fund will be available to cover some book expenses and some other things. So, that's going in the right direction, because we are, even though we are a free public library, we do take in, money from the copiers and faxes and people printing. People do a lot of printing off of the internet. So we do make, some cost recovery in that area for our ink and our paper and supplies. Because we don't have a supplies line item, so all of our supplies get paid out of our revolving account.
And the reason why I ask is because I know that the utility costs, particularly electricity for a building such as a library, can be quite extensive. And I wasn't sure if, we've been looking at ways to, conserve energy and reduce those electrical costs, so we can put more of that money towards, books or other programs that are being offered. Has anything like that been looked at?
I'm with you on that. I would like to have our electric bill down as low as humanly possible, because it's one bill. I hate paying utility bills out of the library budget. But as far as I know, they had done an energy efficiency study not that long ago. And I know just from being in other libraries in the past, there have been issues with some of the lighting not being adequate enough, because we are promoting people coming in and reading, and light is very important to us. I think we get saved in that building because we do have so many great windows, and when we get bright sunny days, I think that really helps immensely. So, in little cost saving things, like we keep a lot of the staff areas in the dark, certainly when there's nobody in them. But if anything you can do, I certainly would appreciate it. So.
And just one other quick question: the MAR requirement. As we move forward in time each year, does that amount change? Does it ever go down as a result of the? Does it ever go down as a result of the difference between the town appropriated amount and what the MAR requirement is going forward, if each year the amount is less?
No, the only way that it would reset itself would be if the town was decertified for like 3 years, and that's a high cost to pay.
Right.
And that's at this moment in time. I mean, I've heard some rumblings that there may be something eventually. It's just something that we kind of have to wait out and see, I think, at this point. I know that nothing is going to happen now, because the board would be very concerned with the economy still being in such a tough state that, not every community is supportive of their library, and it could put some at risk. So I know that they wouldn't do anything until they started to see things move in the right direction. So, but certainly it's something that we can, look into when we see that tide starting to turn. I mean, for now, obviously our hope is that we don't have to continually apply for waivers, because, and it holds back our state aid. libraries that are meeting their requirements send in the report, and they're going to have their money in December. And we won't get ours till like March because it has to go through this process. So we do wait longer for that funding. So it's certainly not something that we would aspire to, but I think we just need to be reasonable about it and see how it all plays out. So, but we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Good to hear.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly, I've been to the Board of Library, State Board of Library Commissioners meetings, and where we have seen lines out the door, as Selectwoman Begley has said, for a number of waivers. The target has been set quite high for quite some time by the state. I would like to work with our legislative delegation to see if we can get more reasonable targets, because we have increased 25+% for communities that have worked at that. But as you see that line, you're talking about, very affluent communities that have not hit their target. And so I think the target needs to be adjusted to really reflect the current economic situation. But I want to thank you and your staff, and you've worked on grants in very creative ways to keep the library operations working in a very positive way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I want to thank you for the report you did, and I can tell it's not just a job, it's a passion with you. And,
well, it's kind of become a big part of my life.
Yeah,
so.
keep up the good work. That's all I
Okay.
can say.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, moving on to item 3, if you will, I want to thank Selectman Holmes and Town Council for working very hard. In the packet, you have the revised agreement with Bay State Municipal Accounting, and one Mr. Justin Cole, who started last Friday and was in the office as well today. I want to thank everybody involved in this process, and I will keep you updated on the continuing going forward processes into the second phase of the project. Item B, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to report that, as scheduled, we had Ms. Grace Sandell, who is a certification field supervisor with the Bureau of Local Assessment from the Mass Department of Revenue, conducted site visits all last week and into this week. And I want to thank Ms. Elsa Miller, Director of Assessment, and the entire assessment team for working on this project. It's the beginning stages of, once again, our tri-annual review and revaluation processes. Item C, Mr. Chairman, as in recent weeks, we're all very concerned about the Wareham District Court and potential closure. We received a response, very eloquent, I might add, from the Chief Justice of the District Court, Linda M. Connolly. And I think it reflects the efforts that we've made to date to try to work to keep that facility open. It's a very important facility for not only this town, but for the South Coast. Attached on the back, I guess this is the downside of double-side copying. Attached to the back of the Maya report is I just wanted to report that on November 3rd, I met with our insurance company under the Mass Municipal Association, Maya, to work on the insurance levels that we need to provide documentation going forward. And at the same time, we received information on the back of their report to us. We received discounted dollars in the amount of $110,207. So that's one of the largest amounts that I can report to you since in my tenure. And we'll be working to increase that amount to lower our insurance costs. One of the big areas that they mentioned to us was workers' compensation. And today, all too often, we have injury in the line of work and duty. And so I have set up for next week, you're more than welcome to join us, and I know Selectman Begley and Chairman Cruz quite often do. The leadership team will be getting a full workers' compensation seminar from Mr. Michael Eaton from the insurance company on how to protect ourselves and take rapid action to protect the town in the areas of workers' compensation. And I also invited the school department, Superintendent Rabinovich, and Anna Moran to join us in that effort. Mr. Chairman, just status reports on the backside. Safety issues at DECUS are ongoing. We're working, obviously, in cooperation with the school committee. And on town hall virtualization, I know Matt Underhill has been working very hard, spending a few days now on working on cabling and getting licensing in place, and working with our state certified vendor to get the town hall virtualization project up to full speed. And I'll keep you posted on that as a status report ongoing, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Town business? We already did the first one. Any town business? I have one. It was a, yeah, I do have one, but I don't think it's in your packet. We had an email come through last week, I think it was last Friday. CPC wants permission to use our attorneys, and I'm going to recuse myself from that because I do belong on the Wareham Historical Society also.
Do you just need a motion from this board for that to
Yeah,
happen?
approval for them to use our attorney. I think they already set something up for tomorrow, so they'll need permission tonight if we give it to them, so it's...
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just on the request, the request came in the day after this board put in writing the most recent policy. That policy was handed to Ms. Dunham, and she then went about her business, got a vote of her body, I believe, to ask the chairman to entertain a motion to exercise some form of review by town council regarding a project that they're working on with the Wareham Historical Society. That's a little summation. I hope I got that correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Steve?
I make a motion to allow the
CPC.
CPC to contact and work with town council on the issue.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Begley. All in favor?
Aye.
3-0-1.
You abstain, I'm sorry, that's right. Oh, I see. Any other town business? We have sewer extensions.
Poor guy.
Guy, are you going to talk to these, or? Yeah, keep it short like you answered Mrs. Begley about a half an hour ago. I like that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Campini. You have two requests.
Actually, sewer extension, I don't know what those requests are. If I made requests, tell me what I made requests for. I'm not really sure what I'm saying for.
Oh, you don't know what this is?
No, I don't. And that's sewer extensions. I have no idea what it was. I thought I'd stay because I thought you had something, so I wasn't going to leave until I was sure.
You wrote us a letter asking to request two properties located in Parkwood Beach be granted an extension.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was on the agenda. I apologize. I did write a letter, I think.
114 Parkwood Drive.
Absolutely. I apologize. I did write a letter. I didn't know it was on the agenda. I apologize for that. What we have here is a couple individuals, the elderly, and the water has been disconnected in one. The other, I believe, the water is disconnected also, and there's some issues with the property. The water line's junk. The issue is they paid their betterment. One has paid the betterment in full, and one is paying the betterment. And they don't want to tie in. That's where it is. The short end of it is that they feel they're not going to inhabit the facility whatsoever, have no intention to. And one, like I say, one paid the betterment in full, knowing that that's their responsibility. They're not getting away from that at all. And they've asked, can they delay tying in and until there's a sale or whatever? And so I told them that I would bring it to you. I have no policy, but I would bring it to the sewer commissions and see how they felt about it. And then I can give an answer definitively. But I don't think it's a bad idea, but that's just my one opinion.
Did you just say there was a policy?
No, there is no policy pertaining to, we have waivers for septic systems in our bylaw that states you can get a waiver if the system is good within 5 years. However, these individuals, all they're asking for is delay tying in because their water has been shut off, they're elderly, they're not going to use the facilities whatsoever, they're going to sell them, they're just not going to utilizing whatsoever. Water's been disconnected at the street. There's, and they're not usable. So they're asking if they can delay tying in until there's a sale on the property and they have the seller to do it. So I told them that I would bring it forward to them, certainly out of my pay grade. So I'm asking what you feel about it. I have no problems with it because of the circumstances, and I'm looking for your guidance on this matter.
Mrs. Bagley.
I have a question. They've paid their betterments. One's paying overtime,
Yes, and one paid in full.
and one's paid in full. The one that's paying overtime
She's since moved in with her children and
has no intentions of occupying the home. Is that
no
correct?
whatsoever.
I see that, and I see a letter here that says the property needs to be renovated or torn down. So that's the
Yes.
one that's paying
Overtime.
overtime. And then the other one
Yes.
is this person just is a summer person? So when,
Yes,
when the water's turned on in the spring, has every intentions of
No, when the water will never be turned on again. She actually removed the water meter, and it's off at the curb street done by the water department. She has no intentions of ever going there again. She's elderly. She's going to stay where she is, and she's just asking, because she paid in full the betterment, she's asking, I'm never going to inhabit the facility again. We're not going to use it. So can I not tie in until I sell it? She's going to put it on the market. She has no intentions of ever using the property again. Her or anybody else in the family, the property will not be used again under any circumstances for any type of habitation, summer, spring, or fall.
That's pretty definitive.
Yes, according to her. And she's very adamant. She's been calling for quite some time, so I finally told her I would present it. Because there was no I have no provision for it, so I said I'll have to present it.
So if the property, say the property's sold,
Mm-hmm.
will that person have to pay a tie-in fee?
Yes, they'll have to hire a contractor and tie in, absolutely.
So they're paying the betterment, but they're
Betterment's
not
paid.
paying, obviously, the tie-in fee. So if the property sells and is either renovated or torn down, someone else will have to come before the Board of Sewer Commissioners, whoever they
Correct.
may be, and pay a tie-in fee.
Correct.
And then it's up to them in their sale of the property if they want to recoup the home. We have nothing to do with the betterments.
No, it's paid. One is paid in full. We have that money. It's ours. They fulfill their obligation for the betterment. The other one's paying over time, and that's recorded. They're paying that right along. We have no issues with it. I checked to make sure they were current. There's no issues. There's no tax lien or anything like that. So, yes, you're absolutely correct. That'll be a negotiation between them, sellers, what have you, how they handle it. But as far as this department's concerned, at that time when they go to tie in, there's a permit required, there's a fee required, and we will monitor it and see that it gets tied in.
So people will be unable to occupy this property?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, unless they tie into sewer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And really, and the cost, it's really a cost disadvantage to them, because if they tie in now, we could tie in as neighbors, the three of us could get together and chip in on those fees, right? So you can lower the cost of the tie-in. But by these people getting an extension, if it's 5 years from now, when they go to tie in, they're going to pay top dollar to tie in that property, correct?
That's a valid point, and that leads into, we have a policy, a bylaw that says they can, if the system's within 2 years, 5 years, actually they can. Well, we've destroyed systems 2-3 years old that are raised systems that people have spent good money on. There are people that are still paying on septic systems, and they chose to tie in for that very reason. Because it's economically feasible. Now there's a couple of contractors in there offering good deals, and they says, my goodness, 5 years down the road, we may get the waiver. 5 years down the road, that price could double, triple, or whatever, and we'll be at the mercy. So they're taking advantage of the market at this point in time. So you're absolutely right. That's a valid point. We see that.
Anything else?
Question? Mr. Campina, what happens in February 2012 if there wasn't this request sitting before us and these folks didn't tie in? What happens then?
What very little here I have left, I'd probably pull. That's a question I'd like to discuss. We're going to have, and I'll speak with Mr. Andrews Thursday about setting up, as we talked about different policies within the sewer department. This is one of them because February's coming up, and we have two issues. One, there are people that aren't going to be able to tie in because of weather. There may be conditions that we get January, they decide to tie in, and there's no way they can. So I can't make them break ground that's unbreakable. So we have to address it. And my thoughts are, shooting off the hip, was as long as there's a contract in place, they could be granted an extension. because they're doing due diligence, going out there and saying, so I will do this, but if the weather prohibits, I've got something in place that's going to address that. That's one suggestion, but again, at this policy meeting, I think it's something that all the good heads here we can together and make something concrete that we can present to the public, because it's valid. It's very valid, and we need to have a plan to address that, yes.
Let me, if I may rephrase the question,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. If I'm a typical homeowner who had a functioning septic system but was forced to tie into the sewer or forced to have a betterment, what would happen in February 2012 if I didn't tie in?
If you didn't tie in simply because you refused to tie in, then in the bylaw there's provisions for me to fine you. And going forward, I would ask the board's indulgence to find people that just simply ignored it. But there are situations where if people took their due diligence, came and asked for waivers, what have you, then we'll deal with those on an individual basis. But if you simply ignored me and said, you know what, I'm not tying in, the bylaw gives us authority to fine them, and I think we should move forward and apply the bylaws and do what we have to do. I think if that's the question you're asking me, that's the answer I have for that. The bylaw gives us, because I need to be educated. It's just an educational meeting. How do we go about it? What do we need to do? Can we use the plans that we have in place? Do we own them? If they owned by CDM? A lot of little questions that they can answer us to give us direction. So when we go to the public, we have answers for them as to how we're going to proceed or whatever. It's just an informational knowledge. That's all it was for. Not to say, here's what we're doing, we're not doing. But I want to be educated, and especially
Absolutely.
IRS funding, and I thought that would be an opportunity to get educated from the horse's mouth.
I agree, particularly since we've spent about $500,000.
And we've already paid. Absolutely. And I agree. And plus, because it was one SRF funding, as I speak to Judy, because I ask myself, how are we still paying bills on contracts that are done? But it's a bigger picture than me, so I need to be educated, and I can't answer the questions intelligently unless we have a meeting and get educated on it, because it concerns me also. How do we pay? We've already spent money. We're still spending money, and contracts wrapped up, done, gone, and we're still spending money on it. It doesn't make any sense to me. So that's all I have. I thank you for your indulgence, your time.
Thank you for your report. Any other
Thanks.
questions?
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
No?
Just quickly, on the Board of Health, if you've noticed there's no Board of Health meetings this month, it's because they don't have a quorum. One member is gone at the beginning of the month, and the other member is gone at the end of the month. So unfortunately, they're not going to be able to conduct any hearings or variances, et cetera, et cetera. I think next month is the third Tuesday, is that correct? I mean, next week is the third Tuesday? So maybe we can discuss appointing a third member. We need a third member, though, Mr. Holmes. It's not required by law. In fact, I spoke to the health agent from Lakeville, who I think he said 2 engineers and someone in development. But for towns, it's not required. It's kind of been tradition in Wareham. However, traditionally, we had more physicians that actually resided in Wareham.
Well, we'll just put an appointment up for next week. I was just wondering who we announced we're looking for a physician. I was wondering where that came from.
I don't believe it was a vote of this board.
Well,
No, this board never voted.
I was the one to mention it because we've been having one for 40-some-odd years. But like you said, in the rules and regulations, there's a call it's for city only. But we were trying to, why be the minimum if we can go with the best?
Well, it costs.
But so we can appoint anybody at this time if it's going to.
Mr. Chairman, it caused confusion because I received the email from the office from Janet. We try to get these things through and get them done. And the question is, we made the announcement last week that you're looking for a physician. I went back. I couldn't find anywhere where this board voted that we were going to change the appointing authority requirements for the Board of Health.
No, we never did change it. We never did change it.
Then why did we announce it that way?
We asked for a physician to apply for the position. And there was only one that did, and then he withdrew.
So we'll put it. So look, then we'll put it. We'll put it on next week.
But the committee did say that they wanted to review all applicants.
All done already. We got.
They're done. They made their recommendation,
We got
Mr.
all that
Cruz.
stuff back.
Now, they do all of them that was presented from the beginning?
They didn't.
Correct.
Yes.
didn't?
Yes.
No, they didn't show up, Mr. Cruz, but that's not, but they don't have a quorum. They had they extended the invitation to all applicants. Not all the applicants showed up. In fact, some, I spoke to Chairman Irish, some said that they no longer wish to pursue it for
Okay, as long as-
personal reasons.
As long as we got it documented, that's good for me.
And the Board of Health has already made their recommendation.
Well,
We got.
This will be the third time they made a recommendation. Right. And they've changed every time they made a recommendation, so.
We gave her the
So it's up
courtesy
to
to
us,
interview, the recommendation or not, we gave her the courtesy to interview, she did that, and sent it back to the office. Why it's not on tonight's agenda is because you posted that we advertise here for a physician. So, we didn't put it on tonight's agenda because of the announcement we made last week. That we're
And this is only the first or second, this is only the second Tuesday of the month.
We can appoint any
Right.
week, but it has to be on the
But
agenda.
normally, you've been doing it for at the third, so if you want to get the nitty-gritty, you usually do it on the third, so the third is
We'll
coming
put it
up.
on for next week, okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other liaison?
Yes, we,
Not?
oh,
If you can make
motion,
30 seconds, go ahead.
motion to go beyond the hour 10 for 5 minutes.
I'll second 5 minutes.
Motion made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Go for it.
Less than 5 minutes. We received, I hope, we received a letter from the chairman of the Conservation Commission regarding an associate member that this board appointed without having given the Conservation Commission the benefit of interviewing the person. And the person hasn't shown up for any meetings. And they're asking for that the appointment be rescinded. And there is a specific process in the charter, and I'd like to put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, that'll be fine. In the meantime, let's have the office document
Section 7-9.
being informed, and he refused.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Schneider, to be clear, we received the gentleman's application in the office.
Correct.
We forwarded the gentleman's application to the chairman of the Conservation Commission. We have all the emails, all the documentation. They didn't interview him, apparently. Well, that's their right to interview or not interview. It's a courtesy. Came back before the board. We interviewed the gentleman and appointed him. So they have a meeting to interview. They didn't do it. So-
Just to be clear, Selectman Holmes, I'm not sure that they had the opportunity to interview him prior to the Board of Selectmen interviewing him and appointing him. That's part of the issue.
They did. The email trail you'll see should cover that.
Okay.
Because we just dug all this stuff out and sent it to the new chairman of that commission. And to go a step further on that appointment, I got a call about the gentleman not showing up. So I said, geez, anybody called the guy? No. I called the guy the next day, and he answered me the following day. And I said, look, they're going to throw you off. You haven't shown up. And I hope he's watching, and I hope I get it right. And he said he apologized profusely. He had to, he's in a business. He had to go out of town and work and save a job that he's in charge of. And so he missed the meetings. He admits he missed the meetings, but wants to continue on the committee. I called the chairman back and told her that in a voice message. And the next day, I got the email that they vote to throw the guy off. So my point, if it ever gets to that point, I will argue that the courtesy of a phone call to somebody, the guy's hasn't been in town 30 years. He's not one of the regulars, right? And a courtesy phone call would have cleared all that up without a lot of issue. But anyway, that's for another day.
On this information, what we'll do is tomorrow, we'll get up with Shirley.
I
have
will.
her send a letter from the office. That way it's documented. It's not I called or you called. It's from the office. Let them reply back to the office. And then we'll be set. Whether we appointed him prior to them interviewing, that's a new point. The only point you have is that he missed 3 thing because we don't, as Mr. Holmes has specified, they can either review or not to review.
There's two things with that, Mr. Chair. First of all, I think that the associate member certainly could have emailed or had a phone call to the chair to explain his absence. But the second,
I'm just telling you what happened.
but the second point I'd like to make is that we have it in the policy, I believe it might even be in the charter, that if someone misses 3 consecutive unexplained absences, that committee may request a hearing before this board. So if that's what they're requesting, I mean, and then it could just blow over. It could be that there's just a lack of communication.
And we're making a decision. They requested, we're making a decision. We're going to inform them, and we'll see where it goes from there. Motion made, 5 minutes, 6 minutes?
Done.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I think you missed one.